Chapter 406. It's okay, don't worry. Poplar Fruit smiled and stopped Zheng Yujie's hand from touching his arm. Your strength is not bad, but it still doesn't hurt. Why don't you dodge? Even if you don't dodge, you should block it. Zheng Yujie rebuked. Didn't you say that you can't fight back? Poplar Fruit teased her. You can't fight back because you can't hit me. I didn't say that you have to stand still and let me hit you, Zheng Yujie said angrily. You're a language expert. Can't you understand such simple words? Okay. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, I won't stand still and let you hit me. Come on, let's finish this quickly and go back to eat. Poplar Fruit was still standing in the same place. His body seemed to be moving but not moving, and he looked at Zheng Yujie directly. If Zheng Yujie was an expert with a little bit of fighting experience, he would definitely feel very uncomfortable because Poplar Fruit's posture was too strange. It seemed like there were flaws everywhere, but he also felt like he couldn't touch Poplar Fruit. As long as he moved, there would be thousands of changes in his opponent, making it impossible for him to attack. But Zheng Yujie wasn't like that. She was fearless because she didn't know anything. She shouted loudly, "Come and take this." Then she kicked over. Taekwondo didn't have many variations. To put it bluntly, it was just kicking with the feet, and the hands were basically decorations. Front kick, back kick, side kick, jump kick, left leg kick, right leg kick, back kick, left leg kick, right leg kick, back and forth, it was just a few tricks. Poplar Fruit easily saw through it. Poplar Fruit gently waved his left hand, and Zheng Yujie's kick was like a sparrow in Xiao Longnu's hand. It flew happily, but it couldn't escape from Xiao Longnu's palm. As long as the Poplar Fruit diverted a little of the force, Zheng Yujie's foot would fall into the Poplar Fruit's control. However, he was still a gentleman and didn't have the intention to play with it. He put it down as soon as he touched it. Zheng Yujie felt as if she had kicked a ball of cotton. It was too unpleasant. Bang! She took 2 steps back, let out a delicate shout, and stomped on the ground. She actually used the extremely difficult move that she had used when she was in the red belt examination, flying turn side kick. This move was a little difficult for girls. It was already difficult to control one's body in the air. It was too difficult to jump and turn around. Zheng Yujie thought that she was still as light as a swallow as when she was a postgraduate student in the United States. After all, she had been working for a long time now. Moreover, she had not been able to move properly before the fight. In the end, when she jumped up and turned around, she lost her bearings and almost fell down. Fortunately, Poplar Fruit's eyes were sharp and his hands were quick. His left hand held Zheng Yujie's waist, and his right hand hugged her leg. He directly caught her in the air. This holding posture was very similar to a male dancer holding a female dancer and spinning her around in a dance. If one didn't watch the first half, one would think that the two were dancing at this time. However, because Zheng Yujie was flipped over, she was facing Poplar Fruit. It looked like a couple, a male carrying a female princess. Ah! Zheng Yujie screamed and opened her eyes in shock. Only then did she realize that she was lying in Poplar Fruit's arms. Poplar Fruit didn't wait for Zheng Yujie to blush, and he put her down. Are you done? Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. Seeing Poplar Fruit's smiling face, Zheng Yujie's little bit of happiness and drunkenness in her heart suddenly disappeared. She said unwillingly, I'm fine. After that, she didn't scream this time. She suddenly straightened her left foot, and her right foot kicked from the inside of her left thigh to the back in a straight line. Moreover, it was a very high kick. The angle of both legs was more than 120 degrees. After the kick, her right foot quickly retracted along the original route. This was a very famous chop move in Taekwondo. All the movements were done in one go, and it was very pleasing to watch. However, it was only very pleasing to watch. Poplar Fruit stretched out his hands and caught Zheng Yujie's long legs on his shoulders. Okay, stop fooling around. Poplar Fruit said helplessly. No. Zheng Yujie's right leg was controlled by Poplar Fruit. She pouted and said, I'm just fooling around. Zheng Yujie's left leg was seen jumping forward on tiptoe. The closer she got, the wider her legs were. It was as if poplar fruit was pressing down on one of her legs to make her pull the ligament. Before poplar fruit could react, Zhang Yujie was in front of him. That's amazing. Poplar fruit stared at her with his mouth agape. At this time, Zhang Yujie's right leg was raised high, and her left leg was also standing straight. The two legs almost formed a straight line. It was the legendary one-legged, and it was a vertical split. Well, poplar fruit's focus was that strange. He didn't see that Zhang Yujie was already very close to him. She looked up at poplar fruit's handsome face, and her eyes began to blur. Poplar fruit initially raised his head to look at Zhang Yujie's toes, but when he lowered his head, he saw Zhang Yujie's seductive eyes. That pretty and flawless face was very close, and her red and tender lips were slightly open. A fragrant scent seemed to hit his nose. Zhang Yujie was aroused by poplar fruit's heavy breathing. She stood on her tiptoes and couldn't help but kiss him. In the end, she closed her eyes. Zhang Yujie felt that she was kissing something smooth. She opened her eyes and found poplar fruit's hand in front of his mouth. Fortunately, poplar fruit's hand was facing outward. Otherwise, Zhang Yujie would have kissed the place that she had just trampled on with her feet. "You're being naughty again," poplar fruit helplessly said. He took a step back to the right and gently put down Zhang Yujie's right leg. "Ari." Zhang Yujie wanted to say something, but when the words came to her mouth, she didn't know what to say. She could only mutter, "You're so boring." Unable to continue fighting, poplar fruit and Zhang Yujie returned to the table and sat down to continue eating. Poplar fruit silently ate 2 mouthfuls of rice. He didn't pick up any food, and looked a little preoccupied. "Hey, what's wrong with you?" Zhang Yujie pointed at poplar fruit with her chopsticks and asked. As if he had made up his mind, poplar fruit turned his head and said to Zhang Yujie, "Yujie, I think we really can't go on like this. It's very dangerous." "Why?" Zhang Yujie asked even though she already knew the answer. "Because, I confessed to Feng Beibei." Poplar fruit was anxious. He wanted to clarify this matter with Zhang Yujie. Zhang Yujie covered her ears, shook her head desperately, and shouted, "I don't want to hear it, I don't want to hear it." Poplar fruit closed his mouth. Zhang Yujie stopped. She looked at poplar fruit vigilantly and said, "Don't say it." "But..." Poplar fruit opened his mouth, but was interrupted by Zhang Yujie. "No buts." Zhang Yujie raised her eyebrows and said domineeringly, "I don't care what happened between you and her. In any case, I will persevere." "But..." "No buts, Zhang Yujie, am not a person who will back down so easily." Zhang Yujie bit her lower lip, proudly raised her head and said, "It's okay, I will wait until the day you accept me." Chapter 407. After dinner, poplar fruit suggested taking Kiki to the hotel. "What's the hurry? Let's play for a while more." Zhang Yujie tried to drag things out. Poplar fruit shook his head firmly and said, "It's not early anymore. It's already past 9 o'clock. If we don't go to the hotel, it'll be troublesome if there are no rooms." Zhang Yujie hoped that the hotel would have no rooms so that poplar fruit would come back obediently. However, she knew that it was impossible. It wasn't the craziest holiday season yet. Even if it was, and even if it was during the most crowded National Day Golden Week, it was impossible to not find a room in a hotel in Beijing. Zhang Yujie's eyes turned. She moved her gaze away from poplar fruit to Kiki, who was reluctantly watching TV as her father put on his coat. "Poplar fruit, let's give Kiki a bath before we go." Zhang Yujie looked at poplar fruit expectantly. "We can bathe in the hotel." Poplar fruit squatted on the ground and answered without raising his head. "But the hotel is unhygienic. Do you want your daughter to bathe in a bathtub that has been used by countless people?" Zhang Yujie tried hard to find an excuse. "Haven't you read the saying on the internet? The public bathrooms in the hotel have the most bacteria. The waitresses don't even clean them. They only change the bedsheets and clean up the trash in the room." That seemed to make a lot of sense. A line from Wang Dachui from Unexpectedly popped up in Yang Guo's mind. What he said makes sense, I have nothing to say in response. Although poplar fruit hadn't reached this level, he also scratched his head and hesitated. He had heard that the hotel was indeed dirty. He wasn't afraid of anything, but Kiki was still young. Her skin was soft and tender. It was too easy for her to be attacked by bacteria. Moreover, her body's immune system wasn't perfect. Poplar Fruit couldn't be at ease. In fact, Poplar Fruit was fooled by Zhang Yujie. How could it be as terrible as she said? At most, it was a small hotel or an unlicensed private hotel that had such a problem. The management of big hotels had always been strict, and there was no need to complain about the hygiene. Otherwise, those celebrities who loved their wings wouldn't dare to stay in a hotel when they were flying around. Kiki suddenly opened her mouth and yawned. Her eyes were filled with tears because of the yawn. She looked tired and blurred. This was the last straw that broke the Poplar Fruit. By the time they arrived at the hotel, Chichi would already be asleep. How could he wake her up to take a bath? Poplar Fruits, a poplar OK's poplar time. I'll bathe Kiki, Zhang Yujie said eagerly. You. Poplar Fruit scratched his head. Zhang Yujie pulled Kiki over, raised her head and said, yeah. Why? You don't believe that I can bathe Kiki? Not really. Poplar Fruit knew that a girl's words must be more delicate than his. Bathing Kiki might even be cleaner than him. It was just that he didn't know what Zhang Yujie was up to. Zhang Yujie changed into a white shirt and carried Kiki into the bathroom. Not long after, Kiki's crisp screams and laughter came from the bathroom. The sleepiness seemed to have been swept away. Zhang Yujie was playing with her in the bathroom. The door wasn't closed. Their laughter poured into Poplar Fruit's ears. Poplar Fruit shook his head. He went back to the door and pulled out his suitcase. He rummaged through it to find the clothes that Kiki wanted to change into. Still a little worried, Poplar Fruit walked to the door and carefully looked inside. Fortunately, Zhang Yujie didn't act recklessly. She didn't take off her clothes to play with Kiki. Taking off her clothes to seduce Poplar Fruit was a little despicable. Zhang Yujie wouldn't go so far as to do that. Remember to support Kiki's head when you wash her hair. Poplar Fruit saw that Zhang Yujie was still a little clumsy, so he instructed her. In fact, compared to Poplar Fruit's clumsy appearance when he just became a father, Zhang Yujie was self-taught. Poplar Fruit even had to learn from the nurse at that time. Hee. Kiki laid on her back and called out crisply, Auntie. Zhang Yujie's hands were busy. She had to use a towel to wash off the foam on Kiki's hair. She responded perfunctorily. Auntie's hair, why doesn't it grow longer? Kiki looked and asked curiously. Kiki's hair is so pretty. On Kiki's first birthday, her hair was the same as Zhang Yujie's. It was only ear length. Later, Poplar Fruit wanted to let his daughter grow her hair long. Fong Beibei also supported Poplar Fruit's point of view, so she never cut it again. Now, it was already shoulder length. She often shamelessly asked her father to carry her around in front of the mirror. She wanted to see more of the beautiful braids her father made for her. Because Auntie likes short hair. Zhang Yujie laughed. Why? Dad said that girls with long hair are the prettiest. Kiki said innocently. Was this considered as revealing a secret? Zhang Yujie raised her head and looked deeply at Poplar Fruit. Her sparkling eyes seemed to be thinking of something. It's nothing. Yang Guo smiled awkwardly. After washing her hair, Zhang Yujie used a new towel to wipe Kiki's hair clean. Then, she put her into the warm bathtub. The water just reached Kiki's stomach. Where's the duckling? Kiki looked around, but she couldn't find the familiar rubber duckling in the bathtub. There's no duckling, but Auntie will buy it for you next time, okay? Zhang Yujie quickly comforted. Kiki was a little disappointed. However, she quickly found a new pleasure, splashing water. Poplar Fruit had experienced this before. He was giving her a bath, but Kiki kept splashing water on him. She was having so much fun. Zhang Yujie was caught off guard. A few drops of water splashed on her body by Kiki's raised hand. Be careful. Poplar Fruit only remembered at this time. He quickly reminded her, but it was too late. Zhang Yujie's shouts made Chichi even more energetic. She shouted and laughed as she scooped up water and splashed it out like she was having a water fight. What's more, Kiki waved her hands and slapped the water surface. Suddenly, countless water splashed over the bathtub and flew outside, splashing on Zheng Yujie's clothes. Kiki, you made Auntie's clothes wet. Zheng Yujie shouted reproachfully. Zheng Yujie's playfulness was stimulated by Kiki. As if she hadn't grown up, she started a water fight with Kiki. Their laughter echoed in the bathroom. Poplar Fruit originally wanted to stop them, but in the end, he had no choice but to hide to the side. In the end, the two finally stopped under Poplar Fruit's reminder. Zhang Yujie, who was worried that Kiki would catch a cold if she bathed for too long, finally finished bathing Kiki. Speaking of which, Xiao Han forgot to wish everyone a happy winter solstice. Did anyone eat dumplings or tang yuan yesterday? Xiao Han is a southerner, but he ate several delicious meat dumplings. I like it so much, haha. Chapter 408. Early in the morning, Yang Guo was wiping the face of Chichi, who had just woken up when there was a knock on the door. The thunderous knocking made Poplar Fruit frown. Who is it? Why does it sound so urgent? Why is the management of this hotel so bad? Poplar Fruit held the towel in his hand and walked out of the bedroom. He walked to the small living room and opened the door. He saw a woman and two men standing at the door. The most eye-catching one was the leading woman. She was a little old. Although she took good care of herself, the crow's feet at the corner of her eyes couldn't be removed just by taking good care of herself. She was dressed very luxuriously and the Prada bag in her hand was definitely not cheap. After following Zheng Yujie to America, Poplar Fruit's knowledge of luxury brands had increased a lot. Are you in the wrong room? Poplar Fruit frowned and asked. Looking at the woman's angry face, it felt like the wife catching the mistress. Kiki didn't want to be left out. She walked in small steps and followed them from the bedroom. She stuck her head out from her father's leg and looked at the guests curiously. The leading woman's attention was involuntarily attracted by Chichi. What a cute little girl. In order to wash Chichi's face early in the morning, Yang Guo even put on a headgear for her. Her bangs scattered, revealing Chichi's delicate little face. The small face's facial features were compact but exquisite and beautiful. Her smooth and tender skin also had a kind of white with a rosy luster, making people unable to help but want to hold her in their arms and gently nibble on her. Actually, Poplar Fruit was a little careless. He didn't see that the person who came looked like Zheng Yujie. That's right. The person who came was Zheng Yujie's mother, Deng Baoyang. Deng Baoyang couldn't sit still when she received news from her old classmate Pang Yu yesterday. However, she didn't rush over immediately because she wanted to talk to Poplar Fruit alone. According to Zheng Mingsheng's analysis, Zheng Yujie's personality was too unyielding. If they directly forced Zheng Yujie to give up on the Poplar Fruit and accept their arrangement, it might even backfire. It would be better to put aside his daughter for now and take a roundabout way to start with Poplar Fruit. Deng Baoyang had looked up a lot of information about Poplar Fruit. It could be said that she had investigated every detail about Poplar Fruit. There wasn't much information in the past year, only what was mentioned in the reports. However, looking at the previous information, Deng Baoyang couldn't help but look down on Yang Guo. She confidently made a plan to talk to Poplar Fruit alone. She felt that Poplar Fruit would back off. However, Deng Baoyang thought that she understood Poplar Fruit. In fact, did she really understand him? Let's not talk about this first. Deng Baoyang was very anxious today. Yesterday, she asked someone to check from the security guard of the community where Zheng Yujie stayed. After Zheng Yujie's car came back, she drove out again. Then, she checked for a night. This morning, she found out from the police that Zheng Yujie's car was parked in the parking lot of the hotel, and the person who checked in was Poplar Fruit's name. Deng Baoyang was furious. She understood that it was easy for young people to have sparks between them, but what was worse was that her daughter was involved in it. If they separated again, it would be very troublesome. Therefore, after she found out, Deng Baoyang rushed over anxiously. Poplar Fruit's attitude made Deng Baoyang unhappy. However, when she saw Kiki, Deng Baoyang's anger inexplicably disappeared. She liked this beautiful and cute little girl from the bottom of her heart. Perhaps it was because Deng Baoyang had reached the age where she longed to have grandchildren. Usually, when she saw her elder sister, who was the same age as her, bringing her grandchildren over from time to time, that innocent and cute look was very lovable. Poplar Fruit saw Deng Baoyan's happy look when she saw Kiki. He frowned and hid Kiki behind him. After Deng Baoyang couldn't see Kiki, she came back to her senses. She remembered that Kiki was the illegitimate daughter of this big boy in front of her who might have slept with her daughter. No matter how cute she was, it was useless if she wasn't of the Zheng family's blood. What a pity. At this time, Poplar Fruit noticed the two men in casual sportswear behind Deng Baoyang. These two men were brought over by Deng Baoyang from home. Although they had retired, they used to be old Master Zheng's bodyguards and were very skilled in martial arts. Don't think that bodyguards all wore suits. It was because of the restrictions of the occasion. Suits were actually more of a restraint to them. If they moved too much, it would tear the clothes. Therefore, these two men in sportswear were actually more threatening. After carefully sizing them up, Poplar Fruit's eyes narrowed and instantly lit up. He could see that the two men in front of him were very, very powerful. They were stronger than anyone Poplar Fruit had met before. Take Meng Sanhua for example. Meng Sanhua probably wouldn't be able to resist one of them. Moreover, Poplar Fruit was looking at two of them at this moment. Kiki, go back to bed. Poplar Fruit's eyes were fixed on the two men as he ordered in a deep voice. Kiki had never seen her father so serious. She didn't know if it was because the father and daughter's hearts were connected, but Kiki seemed to feel danger. It was rare for her to obediently listen to her father's words. She turned her head and ran back to the bedroom at the back, only secretly sticking out her small head to watch. Regardless of whether there was a misunderstanding or not, Poplar Fruit didn't dare to let his guard down in the face of two strong enemies. He knew that because of Zheng Yujie, he had a very strong enemy in the capital, the son of an aristocratic family, Li Zichao. And Zheng Yujie's shrewish personality naturally made many enemies. Perhaps, the three people in front of him were enemies who had come looking for him. Hearing Kiki's footsteps leaving, Poplar Fruit's aura began to rise. His serious face flashed with a cold gaze, and his hands that were once stained with blood emitted a faint murderous aura because he hadn't learned the aura concealment technique. The two former bodyguards that Deng Baoyang brought with her instantly felt it. Their expressions immediately changed, and they quickly blocked Deng Baoyan's left and right. Under their loose sports jackets, their muscles tightened. They also stared at Poplar Fruit as if they were facing a great enemy. Poplar Fruit thought that they were very strong, but they thought that Poplar Fruit was even stronger. That kind of light that could burst out from his eyes wasn't something that an ordinary martial artist could do. That was the patent of a martial artist with internal strength. As former bodyguards, they had a lot of experience. They definitely wouldn't make the mistake of underestimating Poplar Fruit just because he looked young. When they encountered a strong enemy, the two of them very tacitly protected Deng Baoyang first and formed a triangular formation. This kind of formation was more suitable for the two of them to cooperate. As long as the two of them attacked at the same time and cooperated with each other from a distance, the power of the combination wasn't as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. Chapter 409. The two bodyguards were very powerful together, but if they really fought, it was hard to tell who would win and who would lose. Poplar Fruit's eyes had an eager light. He probably didn't realize that there was a kind of fanaticism in his bones. However, Deng Baoyang wouldn't have the chance to compete with them. Deng Baoyang didn't notice the two bodyguards' nervous look. She pushed the two bodyguards away and said, "What are you doing? When did it become your turn to fight? Am I that useless? Where's Yujie? Was she in there? Call her out for me." Deng Baoyang shouted. Deng Baoyang was born in a famous family and was used to being a high and mighty official's son. Even if she was over 50 years old, she still couldn't change the bad habit of ordering people around. However, she wasn't a bad person. She was usually very kind to people, but the character of looking down on ordinary people was deeply ingrained in her. She now looked down on Poplar Fruit, especially Poplar Fruit, who was born in the countryside. After she read the information, she felt particularly disgusted. Sometimes, Deng Baoyang dreamed that Zheng Yujie married Poplar Fruit and ended up in the countryside, wearing a tattered cotton-padded jacket. She looked very miserable with disheveled hair and a dirty face. At that time, she even woke up with tears flowing down her face. Poplar Fruit saw that Deng Baoyang had blocked the two biggest threats behind her, and he was slightly relieved. However, Deng Baoyan's shouting made him frown. She came to Zhang Yujie so aggressively. Could it be that she was really Zhang Yujie's enemy? Maybe, this woman could be someone related to Li Zichao. Poplar Fruit blocked the door and looked at Deng Baoyang indifferently. He sneered and said, "Why should I tell you where she is?" Poplar Fruit's attitude made Deng Baoyang furious. She didn't think that Poplar Fruit would dare to talk to her like that. She felt that since Yang Guo had such a close relationship with her daughter, when she met her mother, she would at least have to be respectful, not to mention bowing her head and bending her waist. However, Poplar Fruit showed a contemptuous tone. "Do you still want to pursue my daughter?" Deng Baoyang was very unhappy. However, she had completely forgotten that Poplar Fruit still didn't know that she was Zhang Yujie's mother. Deng Baoyang gritted her teeth and scolded, "Get out of the way. Zhang Yujie, come out. Hey, can you stop arguing? This is a public place." Poplar Fruit frowned as he looked at the corridor on both sides. Deng Baoyang trembled with anger at Poplar Fruit's stubbornness. She reached out and tried to push Poplar Fruit away, but failed. She scolded angrily, "Bumpkin, get out of my way." Poplar Fruit was very unhappy at this moment. Anyone who was scolded would be unhappy. He stood firmly at the door as if the soles of his feet were rooted to the ground. He retorted, "Auntie, do you have any manners? You knocked on my door early in the morning for no reason. You even tried to get physical with me. Do you still have any manners? If you don't have any manners, get out of the way. I'm going to close the door." Deng Baoyang was stunned by Poplar Fruit's words. Poplar Fruit's words echoed in her mind, "Do you still have any manners?" She muttered, "You actually dared to lecture me. You actually dared to lecture me." Poplar Fruit shook his head and took a step back. Just as he was about to close the door, Deng Baoyang stepped in front of the door. She shouted angrily, "Call Zhang Yujie out. If you don't even think about leaving today. Get out. Why should I listen to you? Why should I call her out just because you said so?" Poplar Fruit was enraged by this woman's rascal behavior and he roared, "Why should I?" Deng Baoyang sneered and said word by word, "Because I'm her mother." Ah! Poplar Fruit was dumbfounded. This time, it was Poplar Fruit's turn to be stunned. Zhang Yujie's mother? Poplar Fruit only then noticed that although the middle-aged woman in front of him had thick makeup, from the outline of her face, she really did resemble Zhang Yujie. Although Poplar Fruit didn't have the fear of seeing Zhang Yujie's mother as if he saw his mother-in-law, after all, he hadn't thought in that direction, she was after all his friend's mother. Thinking back, his attitude towards her just now was really quite bad. Ah! Poplar Fruit scratched his head. He was in a dilemma. He didn't know how to apologize to Zhang Yujie's mother. The atmosphere was too awkward now. But now wasn't the time to be conflicted. She had already announced her identity. He couldn't just reject her, right? "Auntie. Hello, Auntie. I'm sorry. Please come in." Poplar Fruit quickly stepped back and gave way to the door. His attitude had taken a 180-degree turn. From the initial dissatisfaction and disgust to the current respectful and apologetic smile. Deng Baoyang snorted and walked in. Poplar Fruit ran to the table in the living room first and pulled out a chair for Deng Baoyang. He smiled apologetically and said, "Auntie, please have a seat." Deng Baoyang ignored him and walked straight in. She brushed past Poplar Fruit's side and walked towards the bedroom. She was aggressive and unforgiving. The only change was that when she entered the bedroom, her eyes caught a glimpse of Kiki, who didn't even reach her knees. This cute little girl was timidly leaning against the door frame and looking at her. She was obviously a little frightened by her. Deng Baoyan's gaze softened a little. Her large strides also slowed down. She gently smiled at Kiki and walked past Kiki into the bedroom. Poplar Fruit rushed to his daughter's side before the two bodyguards could catch up. He vigilantly shielded his daughter behind him. This was the first time the two bodyguards had seen poplar fruit, so their reaction was a little overboard. But now they could guess that there was something going on between poplar fruit and the Zheng family's eldest granddaughter, so they weren't too worried about Deng Baoyang. When they saw poplar fruit's actions, they looked at each other and smiled. They didn't say anything, but the two of them didn't continue to follow. One of them stood in the living room with his hands hanging in front of his chest, while the other turned around and walked towards the door. The situation in the bedroom was completely different from what Deng Baoyang had imagined. There was no scene of chaos, and she didn't see her daughter's figure. The big bed in the middle of the bedroom was neatly folded, and the sun shone in, making it warm and cozy. The quilt was definitely not folded by Zhang Yujie. As a mother, how could Deng Baoyang not know Zhang Yujie's habits? Zhang Yujie had kicked the quilt around since she was young and didn't like to tidy it up. But where did Zhang Yujie go? She frowned and looked into the bathroom, but only saw Kiki's clothes that poplar fruit had washed yesterday hanging inside. Poplar fruit scratched his head and said, "Auntie, what are you looking for?" "Looking for Yujie? She's not here." Deng Baoyang was very unconvinced. She searched everywhere, under the bed, behind the curtains, and so on. As long as it was a place where someone could hide, she searched. Chapter 4:10. Deng Baoyang didn't give poplar fruit any face. Firstly, she wasn't satisfied with poplar fruit. Secondly, poplar fruit and her were at daggers drawn. Deng Baoyang was so angry that her impression of poplar fruit kept dropping. Deng Baoyang didn't even look at poplar fruit. She walked past poplar fruit and walked into the living room. She sat down on the chair that poplar fruit had just pulled out. The bodyguard in the living room stood behind her with his hands down, expressionless. After the other bodyguard closed the door, he stood behind it. The atmosphere was tense as they prepared to negotiate with the dark underworld society. Poplar fruit saw this. He squatted down and gently pushed Kiki. He whispered to her, "Kiki, stay in the room and don't come out. Dad is talking to that grandma outside." Kiki nodded obediently. She kissed her dad's face and ran back to the bedroom. Poplar fruit came in front of Deng Baoyang. Deng Baoyang slammed the table and asked sternly, "Where did she go? Don't tell me you don't know." "Auntie, don't be angry. Let's talk nicely." Poplar fruit quickly comforted. "Talk nicely? Can't you talk nicely? You came to get a room in the middle of the night and I can't find you. How can I talk nicely?" Deng Baoyang raised her eyebrows and argued. "Ah!" Poplar fruit understood. Zhang Yujie's mother seemed to have misunderstood. He quickly explained, "Auntie, you misunderstood. The relationship between Yujie and I is not what you think. It's not what I think. What I think. You guys got a room. What else can I think?" Deng Baoyang opened her mouth and asked a long series of questions. "No, we didn't get a room," Poplar fruit explained. "Yujie is staying at her house. We didn't mess around." "Auntie, you've really misunderstood. Then why is her car parked in the hotel?" Deng Baoyang asked in disbelief. "Yujie lent me her car last night and told me to use it while I'm in Beijing," Poplar fruit explained. The situation did not seem to be as serious as she had imagined. Deng Baoyang's expression eased a little, but she was still a little skeptical. She glanced at poplar fruit and asked, "Is what you said true? You didn't come out together last night?" "There really isn't. I'm staying in this hotel with my daughter," Poplar fruit sincerely explained. How could he not be sincere? Because he borrowed Zhang Yujie's car, it caused her mother to think that he had tarnished her daughter's innocence. No wonder she questioned him. This misunderstanding must be explained clearly. "I'm sorry, Auntie. I didn't know it was you. I offended you with my words." Poplar fruit carefully apologized, but before he could finish, he was interrupted by Deng Baoyang. "Let's not talk about this first." Deng Baoyang's words were still very domineering. She waved her hand and interrupted Poplar fruit's words. Then Deng Baoyang took out a checkbook from her bag and wrote a check. She tore it off and placed it on the table. Then she pushed it in front of Poplar fruit with 2 fingers. Poplar Fruit did not understand and looked at Deng Baoyang in confusion. Here's 1 million. Leave her. Deng Baoyang coldly said. What? Poplar Fruit was surprised. Not satisfied. Deng Baoyang wrote another check and pushed it in front of Poplar Fruit. 2 million. Are you satisfied? Poplar Fruit's face suddenly changed. He frowned and asked, Auntie, what are you doing? Are you insulting my character with money? At this moment, Poplar Fruit's mind flashed with countless melodramatic scenes from movies, TV shows, and novels. Humph, you have a big appetite. Deng Baoyang threw the checkbook on the table. She wrote and sneered, Okay, I'll give you another 3 million. 5 million. Leave my daughter and get out of Beijing. Poplar Fruit pushed the new check and the previous 2 back to Deng Baoyang. He shook his head and said, Auntie, no matter how much money you give me, I won't agree. Deng Baoyang sneered at Poplar Fruit. She said, I believe that everything has a price. Tell me, how much money do you want to leave her? This is not a matter of money. Poplar Fruit frowned. Haha, it seems that you're scheming something big. Deng Baoyang sneered. Unfortunately, you picked the wrong person. Let me tell you clearly, our Zheng family is not something you can climb up to. Logically speaking, Yang Guo should try his best to explain that there was nothing going on between him and Zheng Yujie, but at this moment, Yang Guo got a little carried away. He was provoked by Deng Baoyang's words, and he said unhappily, Your Zheng family is very powerful, but why would I want to climb up your social ladder? Do I care about your little bit of power? Do I care about your little bit of money? Poplar Fruit was even more disgusted when he thought of Deng Baoyang's words about him being a country bumpkin. He said, Don't always talk about money. Is money omnipotent? Although I came from the countryside, I won't die for money. Because money can't exchange for happiness, it can't exchange for happiness. Can you give my daughter happiness if you don't have money? Deng Baoyang snorted at Poplar Fruit's words. She laughed and said, You're too naive. In the end, aren't you still after Yujie's money? Don't think that I don't know that you have books to translate and money to earn. These opportunities are all fought for by Yujie. Otherwise, aren't you still a poor translator? Poplar Fruit was immediately annoyed when he was questioned about his professionalism. He didn't have time to explain that he wasn't Zheng Yujie's man and that he didn't need to give Zheng Yujie happiness. He quarreled with Deng Baoyang first. Poplar Fruit wanted to make it clear that he didn't rely on Zheng Yujie's books to make money. Yang Guo counted with his fingers as he counted with Deng Baoyang. In the end, he concluded, the money I earn from the translation company is more than 10 times the money I earn from translating those books. To be honest, translating those books takes a lot of time and effort. If it wasn't because I'm interested, why would I need to translate those books for the publishing company? Deng Baoyang nodded her head and said, The money I earn from the translation company is more than 10 times the money I earn from translating those books. I admit that Yujie did help me a lot when I worked with the publishing company, but please don't doubt my ability. The books I translated can sell well because of my hard work, Poplar Fruit said seriously. Do you think you've earned enough money? Deng Baoyang sneered. Poplar Fruit had just said a lot of words, but it was all in vain. She didn't care about how good Poplar Fruit's translation skills were. I didn't earn much, but it's enough for us to live. Poplar Fruit said sincerely. The us he was referring to was him and Kiki, but it was obvious that Deng Baoyang misunderstood him. Deng Baoyang sneered and said, That's ridiculous. This little money is enough. Do you know how much Yujie spends every month? Tonight is Christmas Eve. On behalf of little Kiki, I wish everyone a Merry Christmas in advance. Those who have boyfriends and girlfriends must be happy tonight. Ha ha. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Chapter 4:11. Deng Baoyang retorted, Do you know how much Yujie spends every month? Do you think that Yujie wants to marry you so that she can go back to the countryside with you and live a life worse than pigs and dogs? Poplar Fruit was dumbfounded. It wasn't because he didn't know how much Zheng Yujie spent every month, but because he just realized that there was such a big misunderstanding between him and Deng Baoyang. However, before he could argue, Deng Baoyang began to scold him again. Let's not talk about money first. Deng Baoyang said with a look of disdain. You said that you can give Yujie happiness, but where can you give her happiness? You are a single father with a child. Do you want Yujie to marry you and be your stepmother? Even if Yujie is willing to give up this face, our Zheng family can't afford to lose this face. I really don't understand. How can a man with a family like you dare to pester Yujie, who is such a good girl? Deng Baoyang scolded indignantly. Auntie, wait a minute. Poplar Fruit couldn't help it. No matter how impolite he was, he had to interrupt Deng Baoyang. He said, you may have misunderstood. I didn't say that I want Yujie to marry me. What? When Poplar Fruit said this, Deng Baoyang was even more furious. Are you still a man? Do you still want to be irresponsible after eating her? Deng Baoyan's temper was like that. When she was angry, her words were a little indiscriminate. Poplar Fruit was shocked. He quickly waved his hand and said, Auntie, you're wrong. I have never done anything disrespectful to Yujie. He silently added in his heart, at most, your eyes have seen some things that you shouldn't have seen. If before, Deng Baoyang only looked down on Poplar Fruit's family background and his fatal flaw, now she really looked down on Poplar Fruit. She sneered. I didn't expect you to be a person who dares to do things but doesn't dare to admit it. I understand now. You just want to play with women, cheat Yujie's feelings, and then leave. You're wrong, I'll tell you. Deng Baoyang slammed the table, and a trace of fierceness flashed in her eyes. She scolded, you can't afford to provoke our Zheng family. How did it become a fight to the death? Poplar Fruit really didn't understand. At this time, he didn't say something meaningless like I'm afraid of you, but racked his brains to explain it to Deng Baoyang. Auntie, I swear to God, I really didn't cheat Yujie's feelings. Poplar Fruit said seriously, you said that I play with women. I can promise you that I didn't do anything wrong to Yujie. We're not in the kind of relationship you think. We're innocent. I'm friends with Yujie, just friends. In the end, Poplar Fruit's confession was almost shouted out. His feelings were very sincere, and he didn't drag it out. In fact, he should have explained it clearly. After quarreling with Deng Baoyang for so long, the quarrel went in the direction of misunderstanding. Wouldn't the two of them be more and more divided? Poplar Fruit's words made Deng Baoyan's anger disappear. She frowned and stared at Poplar Fruit and asked, what did you say? I said that I'm purely friends with Yujie. Poplar Fruit bitterly smiled. It has always been like that. How is that possible? Deng Baoyang raised her voice. She didn't believe in Poplar Fruit's words. It's true. Poplar Fruit sincerely said. Auntie, I'm not lying to you. I have a girl that I like, and she's in Yangcheng City. Why would I cheat? Hearing those words from Poplar Fruit, Deng Baoyang was even more doubtful. She had seen the photos of Poplar Fruit with Feng Beibei and Duan Xueqing. At this moment, she was even more convinced that Poplar Fruit was a playboy. She sneered, you might not be two-timing, but I'm afraid that you're three-timing, right? Poplar Fruit was stunned. He immediately thought of the reason why Deng Baoyang said that. He bitterly smiled. Auntie, don't say that. I'm not as bad as you think. You might have heard Li Zichao's rumors. In order to explain, Poplar Fruit carefully explained everything to Deng Baoyang. Naturally, Poplar Fruit hid the romance between him and Zhang Yujie. So you're saying that you're just an accidental shield? Deng Baoyang was 70% convinced by Poplar Fruit's explanation. She didn't trust Li Zichao's character, and Poplar Fruit's explanation was more believable. When she said those words, Deng Baoyan's expression wasn't as ugly as before. Poplar Fruit nodded his head. Then why is what you told me completely different from what Yujie told me? Deng Baoyang pressed on. At home, our Yujie keeps saying that she won't marry anyone but you. Tell me, who should I believe? That's right. On one hand, she said that she loved him wholeheartedly, but on the other hand, she said that they were just friends. There was obviously something wrong. Poplar Fruit was dripping with cold sweat. He didn't expect Zheng Yujie to confess to her mother. Poplar Fruit was conflicted. How should he answer? Say that he didn't like Zheng Yujie at all. Was it because Zheng Yujie kept pestering him? No matter what, Poplar Fruit wouldn't say such a thing. He couldn't embarrass Yujie too much. He thought about what to say in his heart. Auntie, this is all my fault. I asked Yujie to lie to you. Poplar Fruit could only bite the bullet and lie. At that time, I wanted to be a shield, so I did it thoroughly. I thought that if you knew about Yujie's feelings, you wouldn't force her to marry that Lisa Chow. Was that really the case? A mother knows her daughter best. Deng Baoyang didn't think that her daughter was lying through her teeth when she revealed her feelings to her. At that time, the determination in Zheng Yujie's eyes couldn't be faked. But I can swear to you, Auntie, that Yujie and I are absolutely innocent. We are just friends. Poplar Fruit looked at Deng Baoyang carefully and said. He didn't know how many times he had said this oath today. After Poplar Fruit finished speaking, Deng Baoyang was silent. The whole room fell into a very subtle atmosphere. Poplar Fruit didn't dare to breathe. He looked at Deng Baoyang in fear, waiting for her to deal with him. When Deng Baoyang heard Poplar Fruit's words, she remembered her daughter's infatuation with the big boy in front of her. She couldn't help but get angry. Why don't you like our family's Yujie? Deng Baoyang suddenly broke the silence and asked in a bad mood. The topic suddenly changed. Poplar Fruit was dumbfounded. Wasn't she just condemning him for playing with Zheng Yujie's feelings? Why was she blaming him for not accepting Zheng Yujie's feelings now? Our family's Yujie is beautiful, capable and rich. Why don't you like her? After Deng Baoyang knew that Poplar Fruit had a girl he liked and didn't fall in love with Zheng Yujie, she was very unhappy. She couldn't help but ask Poplar Fruit, what was wrong with Zheng Yujie? Chapter 412. Deng Baoyang said those words out of anger, but Poplar Fruit was choked by such a big turn of events. He swallowed his saliva with difficulty, scratched his head, and said, Auntie, Yujie is a very good girl, and also a very good friend of mine. But when it comes to feelings, you can't force it. Moreover, I already have a girlfriend. Poplar Fruit silently scolded himself for being shameless. Fong Beibei hadn't even agreed yet and he was already calling her his girlfriend. However, the situation was urgent and he couldn't care so much. First, he had to let Zheng Yujie's mother feel at ease. After calming down, Deng Baoyang regretted saying those words. She even asked him why he didn't like her daughter. It was as if no one wanted her daughter. She had really thrown the Zheng family's face away. However, in her heart, Deng Baoyang was still a little unhappy. She felt that things shouldn't be going down this path. The script should be written like this. Poplar Fruit was infatuated with the Zheng family's eldest daughter and admired the Zheng family's power, so he kept pestering her. Why did it sound like Poplar Fruit was unwilling but she had to send her daughter to him? Why didn't he like Yujie? Deng Baoyang looked at Poplar Fruit with an unfriendly gaze, which made Poplar Fruit's heart in a mess. Luckily, Deng Baoyang didn't make a mistake again. She calmed down and said, All right, I understand what you mean. Then hurry up and scram as far as you can. Don't appear in front of Yujie again. Deng Baoyan's poisonous tongue still didn't change and the words she said were very harsh. No matter how respectful Poplar Fruit was, he couldn't help but ask in dissatisfaction, Auntie, what do you mean by that? What do I mean? Don't you understand? Deng Baoyang chuckled and said, Stop pestering Yujie. You're not welcome in the capital. Poplar Fruit was angry. He retorted, First, I didn't pester Yujie. We are good friends. It's normal for us to keep in touch. Second, I came to Beijing for work. Why can't you let me come? How can you be so overbearing? Is Beijing owned by your family? Poplar Fruit had always been amenable to coaxing but not coercion. The more you forced him to do something, the stronger the Poplar Fruit would be. What a joke. Deng Baoyang said, You said that you didn't pester Yujie. Why does Yujie miss you every day? You came to the capital to pester her. The quarrel between the two once again escalated to the level of slapping the table. Deng Baoyang slapped the table fiercely and said sternly, If you're a man, then don't meet Yujie again. Let Yujie completely give up on you. Don't be stupid. Yujie's man in the future will definitely be a young master of equal social status. How can a country bumpkin like you look up to him? Are you going to push Yujie into another pit of fire? Poplar Fruit didn't care much about Deng Baoyan's discrimination against him. He cared more about Zhang Yujie. He retorted, "Do you think Yujie will be happy with a political marriage? You don't have to worry. There are so many big families in the capital. There are so many young talents. We will choose the most suitable man for Yujie." Deng Baoyang sneered. "Suitable for Yujie? That's what you think, right?" Poplar Fruit said sarcastically, "If Yujie doesn't love him, how can she be happy?" Thinking that Zhang Yujie was forced to marry a man she didn't love by her family, Poplar Fruit was very unhappy. He even argued with Deng Baoyang, racking his brains to find a reason to fight for Zhang Yujie. He didn't realize that his concern seemed to be a bit excessive. It seemed to be more than just worry. When he heard that Deng Baoyang wanted him to leave Zhang Yujie forever, his emotions were mixed with some reluctance and resistance. This emotion was very subtle and complicated. With Poplar Fruit's EQ, he definitely couldn't detect it at this moment. However, this emotion had already affected his answer. It seemed that he was very emotional about Zhang Yujie. "Hihi, young man," Deng Baoyang ridiculed, "love is just a moment of passion. Do you think that in a big family like ours, there will still be love? Then I can't just watch as Yujie is forced to marry someone she doesn't like." Poplar Fruit finished and added, "As a good friend, I will definitely support her choice." "Her choice is you. Is this how you support her?" Deng Baoyang mocked. "I respect her choice. Although I can't give her love, I believe that she will be able to find her true love in the future." Poplar Fruit shook his head and said, Why are all of you so stubborn?" Deng Baoyang was angry. She rolled her eyes and pretended to be calm as she said, "It's because she can't break up with you. You've been entangled with her in the capital. How can she find her true love?" Deng Baoyang changed from a poisonous tongue to a well-meaning one. She said, "Listen to Auntie's advice. Go back to Guangdong province and love your girlfriend. Don't contact Yujie anymore. She will be able to see past it." Poplar Fruit wasn't that stupid. He shook his head and said, "I will explain the matter between Yujie and me clearly to her. Anyway, I can't be your accomplice." Poplar Fruit's stubbornness was the same as Zhang Yujie's. Both of them were idealists. After believing in their own judgment, they wouldn't listen to anything others said. Sometimes, this was a good thing. At least, Poplar Fruit wouldn't be bewitched by Deng Baoyang now. Deng Baoyang was provoked by Poplar Fruit's words and wanted to scold him again. Poplar Fruit said first, "Auntie, don't say any more. I'm on Yujie's side. As a friend, I will always support her choice. But please don't worry. I didn't cheat Yujie's feelings in the past, and I won't in the future. I will clarify our relationship with Yujie. She will understand." Deng Baoyang took in deep breaths. She looked at Poplar Fruit's eyes, trying to find some traces of lies, but she couldn't find any. Poplar Fruit's clear eyes were very sincere. There was nothing to talk about. Yang Guo had made it clear that he was stubborn. Deng Baoyang didn't say anything more. She just looked deeply at Poplar Fruit, pushed the chair away and stood up. She straightened her clothes, turned around, and walked out of the door. "Let's go," Deng Baoyang ordered. The bodyguards who had been standing in front of her expressionlessly just now followed closely. They didn't even look at Poplar Fruit, nor did they say goodbye. The three of them left just like that. Poplar Fruit was a little uncomfortable. They came in such an aggressive manner, but left without even saying goodbye. Was this the style of a big family? Shaking his head, Poplar Fruit returned to the bedroom. He saw that Kiki had already gotten under the quilt, only sticking out her small head to look outside. Poplar Fruit laughed and carried her out. He kissed Kiki's little face and said with a smile, "Why did you get under the quilt? That grandma is so scary." Kiki hugged her father's neck and said with lingering fear, "Papa wants to protect Kiki." Yes, Papa is here." Poplar Fruit said with a smile, "It's okay now. She's gone." Chapter 413. After putting down his phone, Poplar Fruit walked back to Kiki. He waved his hand and smiled. Kiki, it seems like we'll have to stay here for a few more days. Yang Guo had just called the production crew of Unexpectedly and wanted to return to the set to help out. In the end, Ming Shou told him that the remaining scenes would be completed in 2 days. If Yang Guo went back now, he would have to come back the next day. It was better not to go, it would be too troublesome. Poplar Fruit thought about it and agreed. He didn't need to agree to Meng Shou's arrangement. He just needed to wait for the crew to come back and attend the banquet. Poplar Fruit owed him a lot of meals, so he could treat him to a banquet. Papa, let's go home, okay? Kiki hugged her Barbie doll and raised her head pitifully. Kiki, are you homesick? Poplar Fruit squatted down and held Kiki's hand lovingly. Kiki shook her head and snuggled into her father's arms. She leaned into her father's ear and said softly, "That grandma is so fierce. Kiki's grandma is so nice. Kiki misses grandma." Poplar Fruit had a headache. He still had things to do in Beijing. How could he go back to his hometown just like that? However, Poplar Fruit didn't want to disappoint his daughter. He had an idea and took out his computer. He first called his mother, Xu Jinfeng, and asked her to QQ. This year, the living conditions at home were getting better and better. His elder sister had given his parents a new smartphone and a computer in their bedroom. Now, Xu Jinfeng used it to watch those soap operas on the internet every day. Kiki, let's video call grandma, okay? Poplar Fruit smiled and put his daughter on his lap. He pointed the camera of his laptop at them. Chichi was very curious. She didn't know what her father was going to do by taking out this television that she could watch with joy. She also didn't understand what a video call was, so she just nodded out of habit and observed her father's movements. Poplar Fruit clicked on the computer with the mouse, and then said to Xu Jinfeng on the phone, "Mom, I'm sending a video call request now. Please accept it." Kiki glanced at her phone and didn't notice that a video call window had appeared on the computer. Kiki. "Hello, I heard that you miss grandma, right?" Xu Jinfeng's voice suddenly came from the computer. Kiki was shocked. She clutched the corner of Poplar Fruit's clothes tightly and looked around, but she couldn't find her grandmother. "There she is." Poplar Fruit touched Kiki's little arm and pointed to the computer screen. Kiki looked in the direction of her father's finger, and her eyes lit up. She saw her grandmother waving at her from the computer. "Haha." Kiki laughed. She raised her head and took her father's hand. She said happily to her father, "Papa, grandma is on TV, grandma is on TV." Poplar Fruit smiled and explained, "Grandma is not on TV. Grandma is on a video call with you. It's the same as a phone call." Chichi nodded as if she didn't fully understand. Poplar Fruit smiled and waved at his mother. He asked, "Mom, can you hear me?" He had turned off the phone, and now he was talking through the microphone hole of the laptop. He had never used it before, so he didn't know how it would sound. "Yes, I can hear you clearly," Xu Jinfeng said with a smile. Poplar Fruit's computer was an Apple laptop bought from the United States this year. It had the highest configuration, and the camera was a FaceTime HD camera. Of course, it looked clear. "Come, Kiki, say hello to grandma." Poplar Fruit smiled and took Kiki's little hand. "Grandma, hello," Kiki said in a childish voice. However, she was speaking in Mandarin. Although Kiki had learned a lot of Poplar Fruit's native language, it was still difficult for her to convert. Poplar Fruit didn't think much of it, but the older generation felt that if a child didn't learn their native language, they would forget their ancestors. Therefore, Xu Jinfeng smiled and replied, "Yes." Then, she tried to persuade Kiki to speak their native language with her grandmother. Chichi was very talented when it came to languages. Under the deliberate guidance of her grandmother, she also boldly opened her mouth to speak the dialect of her hometown. Although she stumbled and occasionally mixed in Mandarin, she spoke it very well. Xu Jinfeng chatted happily with her granddaughter and completely forgot about her son, Poplar Fruit. Even when she closed the video call window, she didn't say much to Poplar Fruit. It was as if Kiki had used up all the talking time. After the video call, Kiki didn't pester Poplar Fruit and say that she wanted to go home. But now, there was another problem. Kiki began to pester Poplar Fruit to have a video call with Fong Beibei. He didn't know how her little brain developed. She was only a little more than 1 year old, but she already knew how to draw inferences. But in the end, Poplar Fruit was the one who was in a dilemma. Fong Beibei said that they would be separated for 2 months and that they would meet again during the holidays. She didn't even answer his phone. Would she agree to have a video call with Kiki? Poplar Fruit rubbed Kiki's little face and persuaded, Kiki, Sister Beibei is not free. She has gone to a very, very far place. When she comes back, we will go and find her, okay? Kiki immediately pouted. She shook her head and said, Papa, you're lying. Beibei won't abandon Kiki. Seeing that her father didn't move, she immediately shed tears of grievance. She pursed her lips and cried, Kiki wants Beibei, Kiki wants Beibei. Poplar Fruit had a headache and wanted to hug Kiki to comfort her. But this time, Kiki lost her temper, which was rare. She desperately twisted on Poplar Fruit's thigh and cried loudly. She was determined to not turn back until she hit the south wall. Kiki was rarely so disobedient, but when she was willful, Poplar Fruit really couldn't do anything to her. He had tried before, but she didn't listen to him. She cried until she was tired and fell asleep. Then she woke up and cried again. Okay, Papa will call Beibei right now. Poplar Fruit helplessly raised his hands to surrender. Seeing that Kiki still didn't stop, he quickly took out his phone and dialed. The first time, Fong Beibei didn't pick up. The second time, Fong Beibei still didn't pick up. It wasn't until the third time that Fong Beibei finally picked up. She was angry at Poplar Fruit and said, Didn't you say that you're not allowed to call me in these 2 months? Do you know that my father was right next to me just now? He almost found out. I'm sorry, Kiki is too annoying. She wants to video call you. I can't do anything about it. Poplar Fruit said with a wry smile, look at how she cried. Hearing Kiki's cry from the phone, Fong Beibei's anger suddenly disappeared. She said helplessly, Alas, I really don't know what to do with you. Wait a minute, I'll go back to my room and turn on the computer. In the end, she didn't forget to add, You're not allowed to peek. Remember our agreement. Chichi got her wish and met Fang Beibei through the computer's webcam, while Yang Guo stood pitifully to the side. His heart itched to listen to Fang Beibei's bell-like laughter, but he couldn't go over to take a look. He gloomily looked at his daughter's tear-stained face and was extremely envious. Alas, why is my status so low? Chapter 4:14. After the video call ended, Poplar Fruit took his daughter out. Since they were in Beijing, they couldn't stay in the hotel and play on the computer. Taking advantage of the beautiful weather, Poplar Fruit wanted to go sightseeing with his daughter. Beijing was very big. Not to mention that Poplar Fruit had only been here a few times. Even if he stayed in Beijing for a month, he might not be able to see all the scenic spots. Of course, it wasn't a good thing to be dazzled by the selection. Poplar Fruit still hesitated for a long time before choosing Summer Palace as their main target today. He and Kiki were happy and didn't take the incident of Zheng Yujie's mother blocking the door seriously. However, Deng Baoyang was very angry when she went back. The more she thought about it, the more upset she felt. After Deng Baoyang went back, she called Zheng Mingsheng. She and Poplar Fruit were the same. They covered up this incident. Zheng Yujie was completely in the dark. She didn't know that Poplar Fruit and her mother had an argument. Mingsheng, I'm so angry. Deng Baoyang waited for Zheng Mingsheng to answer the phone and said angrily, Oh, what's wrong? Who provoked you? Zheng Mingsheng was in the office, looking at the documents in his hands as he asked. He still didn't know what had happened in the capital, so he was confused by his wife's nonsensical words. Who else? It's that Poplar Fruit, Deng Baoyang said. Poplar Fruit. Zheng Mingsheng was very busy. A few months had passed, so he couldn't remember the name Poplar Fruit. He put down the documents and thought for a long time before he remembered who Poplar Fruit was. Oh, you're Yujie's Poplar Fruit. You really don't care about what's going on at home. What do you mean Yujie's Poplar Fruit? Our Yujie has nothing to do with that country bumpkin. Deng Baoyang said angrily. Baoyang, how many times have I told you? Watch your words. Zheng Mingsheng criticized her and said, I know you're prejudiced, but don't say it out loud. What if others hear it? Deng Baoyang also realized that she had spilled the beans. Zheng Mingsheng couldn't stand Deng Baoyan's poisonous tongue the most. It was also because he was worried that she would offend people outside that he didn't let Deng Baoyang stay in the place where he was currently in power. If she stayed in the capital, the people she met were all from big families, so it wouldn't be so easy for her to cause problems. Yes, I was wrong. I was wrong, okay? Deng Baoyang said, why don't you ask me why I'm so angry? Then tell me, what happened to make you so angry? Zheng Mingsheng picked up the document again and prepared to read it at the same time. Deng Baoyang began to reprimand her. It was such a simple thing, but she actually spent a total of nearly 40 minutes to explain it. Why did she say a total of 40 minutes? Because Zheng Mingsheng interrupted her, because the Great Secretary wanted to listen to a director's report. That's it. Don't you think it's infuriating? Deng Baoyang said when she finished. Deng Baoyan's words were a little harsh, but she was actually a good person. It could be seen from the fact that she didn't exaggerate when she described what had happened. Nothing happened, so you should be happy. What are you angry about? Zheng Mingsheng laughed. As a government official, he had seen too many things that happened to ordinary people, both big and small. Zheng Mingsheng really didn't think it was a big deal. What do you know? Deng Baoyang said unhappily. That poplar fruit said it was nothing, but what about our Yujie? Is she going to suffer because of unrequited love? Hey, why are you in such a hurry? Yujie is still young. She'll figure it out in 2 years. Don't worry. Zheng Mingsheng looked at the document in his hand, took out a pen and sketched on it, and said casually, don't compare ordinary people with our Yujie. As her mother, I know her personality best. She's stubborn. If she's set her mind on something, even a few trucks won't be able to drag her back. Deng Baoyang retorted. Mingsheng, I'm telling you, don't let your guard down. If she really gets together with that poplar fruit, it'll be too late for you to cry. Didn't you just say that poplar fruit said that he has a girlfriend? Zheng Mingsheng asked. Then it's settled. He has a girlfriend, so Yujie will let go of him by herself. Can't he break up with a girlfriend? Times are different now. It's normal for young people to break up and get together. I see that he's so stubborn and doesn't listen to my advice. He must still have ideas about our Yujie in his heart. A man whose daughter is already so old is really shameless. Deng Baoyan's poisonous tongue acted up again. Then what do you want? Zheng Mingsheng asked helplessly. Do you want me to do something? Find someone to seal his books and force him to bow down to you? Or find an excuse to lock him up so that they can never see each other again? Is it because of this that you feel happy? That would be really good, but Deng Baoyang was still a good person. When she heard Zheng Mingsheng's words, she quickly shook her head and said, no, won't that hurt people? Especially when she thought of Kiki's big innocent eyes, Deng Baoyang couldn't bear it. She turned around and scolded Zheng Mingsheng. How did you become so vicious after being an official for a few decades? Hurry up and come back. Let me see if your heart is already black. Deng Baoyan's poisonous tongue didn't even let Zheng Mingsheng off. Zheng Mingsheng was fine. He was already used to his wife's way of speaking. He said helplessly, you were the one who said that you wanted me to help you vent your anger. I thought of a way to help you vent your anger, but now you blame me. You're really not human. What do you want? I don't want anything. I just don't like him. Deng Baoyang didn't feel that it was her fault at all. She said matter-of-factly, I don't need a busy man like you to give me ideas. I'll keep an eye on him myself. This liar. I'll take off his mask myself. You want to take advantage of my daughter? Dream on. Hearing his wife talking to herself, Zheng Mingsheng supported his head with his right hand and said helplessly, okay, I'll leave it to you. If there's nothing else, I'll hang up. There's still a lot of things to do here. There's something. Who said there's nothing else? Deng Baoyang said quickly. I have something to tell you. Hurry up and say it. Zhang Mingsheng was a little impatient. After being tormented by Deng Baoyang, he hadn't even finished half of the document. There was still a standing committee meeting in the afternoon. It's like this. I was at Poplar Fruit's place today. I think his daughter is quite cute. Deng Baoyan's long-winded speech started again. She told Zhang Mingsheng about her strong desire to have a grandson. Millimeter, oh. Zhang Mingsheng was angry, but he couldn't show it. He could only lower the volume of the phone and concentrate on editing the document. As for Deng Baoyan's side, he didn't listen to a single word of those trivial family matters. He used all kinds of auxiliary words to answer. Zhang Mingsheng and Deng Baoyang only had 2 children. The eldest, Zhang Yujie, was in a bitter one-sided love. They couldn't expect to have a grandson for a while. Deng Baoyan's wild idea could only fall on Zhang Taiming. Poor Zhang Taiming. He was in school with his buddies who were about to leave. He didn't know that he was inexplicably implicated. Chapter 4:15. Poplar Fruit had been playing with Kiki in Beijing for 2 days without informing Zhang Yujie. He had thought about whether he should invite Zhang Yujie, but then he thought about it. Beijing was the Zheng family's territory, and his every move might be under their surveillance. The most important thing was that he had promised Zhang Yujie's mother that their relationship was pure. Deng Baoyang had just left, and he had asked Zhang Yujie out. What did that mean? However, after Wan Hetiani and the others returned from the mountains, Poplar Fruit had no choice but to inform Zhang Yujie about the celebratory feast. Now that both of them were shareholders of Wanhe, it would be unreasonable if he didn't invite her. Zhang Yujie was carefree. She didn't ask what Poplar Fruit had been doing for the past 2 days like my daughter. When she saw Poplar Fruit, she was as natural as usual, which made Poplar Fruit secretly sigh in relief. This celebratory feast was also called a wrap party. Poplar Fruit had initially chosen the Grand Capital Hotel, but they didn't allow filming equipment in, so he had no choice but to give up. In the end, he changed to a 5-star hotel. In a large private room, 2 tables were filled with people. The whole process would be filmed, and when the time came, a few scenes would be edited as highlights. The hotel's dishes were very sumptuous, and the speed at which they were served was also very fast. The cast and crew had just rushed over and sat down when all kinds of cold dishes and exotic delicacies were placed on the table. The beautiful waitresses in Gyeongsams were like butterflies, weaving in and out of the crowd and pouring red wine for everyone. Everyone, please be quiet. Before we eat, I'll say a few words. Before the banquet started, it was time for the directors and actors to speak. Calling Beast was the first to stand up. The micro-movie this time was a big breakthrough for Calling Beast. From the filming process, he was very satisfied. After so many years as a podcaster, Calling Beast had a very accurate grasp of the audience's preferences. He was sure that this micro-movie would be very popular after it was released, so when he stood up with the microphone, he was very proud and pleased with himself. Today, I'm very happy to announce that our unexpectedly micro-movie has finally finished filming. Calling Beast shouted loudly. To everyone's hard work over the past month, cheers, cheers. Everyone laughed and raised the red wine in their hands, clinking it with each other. Poplar Fruit didn't drink, and he didn't make an exception today. The glass he raised was filled with cola, but he still clinked glasses with others. Drinking was just a formality, what he wanted was this joyous atmosphere. Kiki looked on curiously, sucking on a small straw in her mouth. She sat in the BB seat, protecting her small glass with a small cup of coconut juice in it. It was a rare occasion like this, so Poplar Fruit also let his daughter have a drink. Soft drinks couldn't be given to Kiki. Children's teeth were too delicate and couldn't withstand the invasion of soft drinks. Calling Beast wasn't done yet. He stood up and said a lot of touching words, counting the hard work that everyone had put in to make this micro-movie, making everyone's eyes turn red. However, after he talked about 10 people, Baiku raised his glass and purposely disrupted the atmosphere. Calling Beast, if you continue, the food will get cold. Ha ha. Everyone roared with laughter, and the touching atmosphere disappeared. There was nothing left to say, and only a few of the main actors were left. Calling Beast didn't continue and smiled. "All right, I won't talk nonsense. I just want to tell you that we didn't expect to be able to finish filming so smoothly. It's all thanks to everyone here. I thank everyone on behalf of the company." With that, Calling Beast bowed deeply to everyone's applause and sat down. He patted Old Bai beside him, Wanha's CEO, who had just finished a negotiation and rushed back to attend the celebration party. "I'll say a few words too." Old Bai stood up and smiled. "I know that everyone can't help but look at the delicious food, so I'll make it short. 2 things. First of all, everyone knows that I went to many video websites to get the best conditions for us. Today, I'm back with good news," Old Bai said with a smile. He paused here to keep everyone in suspense. Everyone was excited. Everyone in the crew held their breaths and looked at Old Bai expectantly. "Good news, super good news," Old Bai laughed. "Our old client, GUU2, has signed a contract with 2 websites. They've agreed to promote this micro-movie on our homepage. Moreover, they've agreed to help us promote it half a month in advance." Before Old Bai could finish, the people below couldn't help but cheer. Why were they cheering? U2 was a mainstream video website in the country. It was ranked number 1 in the industry in the field of original videos. To be able to receive such support from U2 meant a huge amount of views and popularity. In the age of the internet, views represented results. If one were to be more vulgar, it would mean bright red money. That's why our video team has to speed up. While ensuring the quality, we have to push out our micro-movie as soon as possible. Old Bai smiled. This is a rare opportunity. As long as we can use this opportunity to make our name known, there will be more of such collaborations in the future. By then, don't mention U2, even Strangelove and Yusha will have to fight for a spot. All right. Under Calling Beast's lead, almost everyone applauded, including Kiki. She was purely there to join in the fun, and her face was red with excitement. The second thing. I'm very happy to announce that Mr. Yang, Poplar Fruit, and Ms. Zhang Yujie, who are sitting next to me, have jointly invested in our Wanha. They've brought an investment of up to 10 million. Old Bai gestured to Poplar Fruit and Zhang Yujie to stand up. I believe that all of you more or less know about this news. Old Bai looked at everyone's unsurprised expression and smiled. But you probably don't understand what this means. I can tell you that we now have enough funds to accelerate the company's development. In addition to the unexpectedly miniseries that we've already planned before, we can immediately enter the preparation process. We still have enough funds to support 1 or 2 video projects this year. But, even the cleverest housewife can't cook a meal without rice. Old Bai clapped his hands and put on a yearning expression. It made people laugh. Up until now, we only have this little bit of plans. We have money, but we can't spend it. What do you guys say? Spend it for me. Xiao Ji smiled mischievously. Okay, give me a good idea, and I'll give you the money right away. Old Bai snapped his fingers and pointed at little Ge in the air. Xiao Ji stuck out her tongue in embarrassment. Chapter 416. I'm not joking with you guys. Although Old Bai was smiling, his tone was very serious. Now, the delicious smell of meat was no longer enough to attract the attention of the crowd. Everyone was listening attentively. Old Bai was indeed much better at running the company than the beast. The art of his speech could even move the beast easily. Poplar Fruit saw this and was extremely impressed. He began to feel that he had profited from investing in this company. It had a first-class management team and system, as well as a first-class video team and talents. If such a new media company could not succeed, it would be unreasonable. Old Bai continued, I know that everyone joined Wanhe with the ambition of starting a business. In the past, Wanhe was still in the startup stage and lacked funds, staff, and equipment. But now, it's different. Wanhe's platform has been built, and it's unprecedentedly broad. As long as you have the confidence, Wanhe will definitely give you a chance to take off. So, everyone, Get up and use your wisdom. I believe that with such talent, your creativity must be limitless. Old Bai shouted excitedly, like a MLM lecturer. Zimo, Bai Ku, Supreme Jade, Zhong Benyu, and all of you. As long as you can come up with a great idea, we'll give you money. We'll give you money. We'll give you people. The entire company will serve you. In the thunderous applause, Poplar Fruit saw the fanaticism in the eyes of Zimo and the others. Even Xiao Ji, who had been joking earlier, was very excited. She rolled up her sleeves and looked like she was ready to go all out. When the applause gradually subsided, Old Bai laughed and said, "I'm sorry for talking for so long. Let's eat, let's eat." Everyone laughed and raised their chopsticks one after another. The celebratory banquet was immersed in a joyful atmosphere. Most of the main creative staff drank a lot, causing them to stand unsteadily in the big group photo. But who knew that this photo would become a precious old photo of a company that grew into a giant in the entertainment industry many years later? After the celebratory banquet ended, the others who were still sober were dismissed. For those who were drunk, Poplar Fruit booked a few rooms for them and had the waiters help them up. Zhang Yujie drank a few glasses, but she was far from drunk. Poplar Fruit took out his keys and prepared to drive her back. "Wait a minute," Zhang Yujie took Poplar Fruit's hand and said, "Let's go." Poplar Fruit looked at the energetic Kiki in his arms and hesitated for a moment before nodding. Behind the hotel was Beijing International Studies University. It was the site of Professor Luo, who had held a press conference with Poplar Fruit last year. At that time, Poplar Fruit was even accepted by Professor Luo as an exception. If it weren't for Poplar Fruit's rejection, he would have received an admission letter from outside the capital by now. "Let's go in and take a walk," Zhang Yujie said generously. Poplar Fruit glanced at the banner at the entrance. It seemed like there was a graduation ceremony outside of Beijing, however, this didn't seem to have anything to do with him. Poplar Fruit smiled and walked in with Zhang Yujie. Outside of Beijing was divided into the East Campus and the West Campus. Poplar Fruit was walking in the East Campus, which was the main campus. Most of the teaching buildings and living areas were located here. Similarly, the green environment was very good. The trees provided shade. If it was autumn, the 2 rows of maple trees would be in full swing. It was a beautiful sight. "Their gate is quite interesting." Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "I haven't seen a gate with 3 layers. It's a bit small." "The gate is small and the campus is small." Zhang Yujie curled her lips and said. The two of them walked into other people's campus to play and pointed at other people's school gate. Fortunately, they didn't speak loudly, otherwise, it would cause public outrage. Walking around the campus, Poplar Fruit and Zhang Yujie were in a leisurely mood that didn't fit in with the atmosphere of the graduation season. Poplar Fruit didn't say anything. The atmosphere was a bit gloomy. Only Kiki, who was in her father's arms, pointed here and there and called out curiously, "Are you going back after the dubbing?" Zhang Yujie suddenly asked. "Yes. If there's nothing else, I'm going back to Yangcheng." Poplar Fruit nodded and replied, "What are your plans when you go back?" Zhang Yujie casually plucked a branch and peeled off the leaves one by one. "I don't have any plans at the moment. I might give myself a vacation." Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "I've been working non-stop for more than a year. I want to put my work on hold and rest for a month." It was indeed time for a vacation. Although Poplar Fruit usually ran around, he still maintained at least 3 hours of translation time every day. Except for some special circumstances, Poplar Fruit didn't stop translating even during holidays. Moreover, if there was an urgent task, Poplar Fruit had to work all night. Now, Poplar Fruit had earned more than 3 million yuan for more than a year, but this money wasn't easy. If it weren't for Poplar Fruit's interest in this line of work, he would have been tired of it long ago. Even so, Poplar Fruit felt that he should take a break and give himself a vacation. He didn't need to translate anymore. He could think about other things he liked to do, such as traveling and so on. These ideas were still budding, and he hadn't completely decided yet. However, he had talked to Yarrow Dehua, and Yarrow Dehua was very supportive of his idea. He even wanted to take Poplar Fruit to go fishing on a yacht. If he took a vacation, it would be the remaining 1 month of the summer vacation. This was because starting from September in the second half of the year, Poplar Fruit would start to get busy again. Not to mention the school and Cinder, he had to fly to France at the beginning of September to prepare for this year's spring and summer 8th Fashion Week with the old man Artil. After that, there was a series of chores such as the book launch and so on. If he didn't take the time to enjoy his leisure time, he wouldn't be able to enjoy it. What a joke! Zhang Yujie lightly punched Poplar Fruit and complained, "Freelancing like you is the most relaxing. I don't even have many vacations in a year. Miss Zhang, if you want to take a vacation, you can take a vacation. Who can stop you?" Poplar Fruit laughed. "You can't say that. Am I such a foppish person?" Zhang Yujie said discontentedly. "I'm very serious about my work now, okay? My dream is that one day, I can become a big boss. Then, I won't have to rely on my family's judgment." Zhang Yujie nodded and said to herself, "So, I have to seize the opportunity to learn from others in Dongshin. If there's a chance, I will come out and do it alone." Poplar Fruit laughed and said, "Okay, I'll invest for you when the time comes." "Really?" Zhang Yujie asked happily. "Of course, it's because I'm rich. With money, I can do whatever I want." Poplar Fruit said jokingly. "Temph, I'll take it seriously. Don't forget it in the future." Zhang Yujie walked forward with her head held high. Chapter 417. Poplar Fruit and Zhang Yujie were just thinking about Professor Luo Lin when they bumped into him. The first one to notice Professor Luo Lin was Zhang Yujie, who had been looking straight ahead. Poplar Fruit was distracted by Kiki's questions. "Hey, Professor Luo." Zhang Yujie waved happily and ran to Professor Luo Lin's side. "It really is you. I was wondering why your back looked so familiar." Poplar Fruit raised his head and saw Professor Luo Lin and 2 other people walking towards him. Because the trees blocked the streetlights, Poplar Fruit couldn't see their faces clearly. He only saw that one of them was fat and the other was thin. It was a sharp contrast. "You are." Professor Luo Lin initially thought that Zhang Yujie was the girl from his school, but after looking at her clothes, he knew that she wasn't a student. He adjusted his glasses and looked at her carefully, then smiled happily. "You're Editor Zheng from Dongshin." "Of course not, I'm Deputy Editor Zheng. Professor Luo, you can call me Little Zheng." Zhang Yujie smiled. "Professor Luo, I didn't expect to see you here." "Haha, Little Zheng, you're wrong. This is outside of Beijing. I should be the one saying that I didn't expect to see you here, right?" "Haha." Professor Luo Lin laughed. "Hello, Professor Luo." Poplar Fruit walked over and greeted Professor Luo Lin with a smile. "Oh, Little Yang, am I seeing things today? What a coincidence, we're all acquaintances." Poplar Fruit had a deep impression of Professor Luo Lin. He recognized Poplar Fruit at a glance and became happier. "Why are you all here?" Oh, I understand. This old man understands too. Haha." Poplar Fruit hurriedly waved his hand to clarify. "Hey, Professor Luo, what are you thinking? Yujie and I just happened to attend a dinner party. After we finished eating, we took a walk here. It's not what you think. It doesn't matter. Young people should get together often to cultivate feelings." Professor Luo Lin squinted his eyes and smiled. He had already felt that this golden couple was a perfect match at the press conference last year. He liked them as soon as he saw them. "Is this Kiki? It's only been half a year, and you've already grown so big." Professor Luo Lin didn't wait for Poplar Fruit to refute and teased Kiki, who was as cute as a night elf in Poplar Fruit's arms. "Old Luo, who are these 2? At this time, the fatter person standing at the side asked curiously. "Ah, look at me. I was so happy that I forgot all about it." Professor Luo Lin patted his head and introduced them. "Principal Chi, this is Poplar Fruit. I've told you about him before. He's the leader of the new generation of translators, Poplar Fruit. This is the deputy editor of Dongshin Publishing, Zhang Yujie. She also became a deputy editor at such a young age. She has a bright future ahead of her." Oh, the poplar fruit that you wanted to recruit last year, but was snatched away by old Chen from Higoshiyama University. Principal Chi immediately remembered. This was also Chen Zhongdai's fault. When he came to Beijing for meetings, he would often show off his favorite disciple. Professor Luo, you flatter me. I'm not as good as you say. I still have to continue learning from you old seniors, Poplar Fruit said with a red face. Poplar Fruit, this is Principal Chi from our College of Advanced Studies. Because of your master, he has been thinking about you for a long time. Professor Luo Lin happily introduced. He didn't mind adding fuel to the fire by joking around. The fat Principal Chi wasn't so narrow-minded. He warmly shook hands with Poplar Fruit and smiled. It's okay. We still have to interact more with Higoshiyama University. There will be more opportunities to learn from each other in the future. And this one. Professor Luo Lin patted the calm and quiet skinny man beside him and smiled. I don't think I need to be introduced, right? You can often see him on TV. Before Poplar Fruit could take a closer look, Zhang Yujie screamed. He Ling. It's really you. Wasn't it? Poplar Fruit only realized at this moment. The seemingly weak and baby-faced man in front of him was the famous TV host He Ling. Hey, He Ling, hello, I'm also your fan. I grew up watching your show. Seeing his idol, Poplar Fruit was a little nervous. He shook He Ling's hand and said excitedly. In the end, he didn't forget to let Kiki greet He Ling. Kiki, hurry up and call He Ling uncle. Hello uncle. Kiki said obediently. However, she wasn't interested. She turned her head and looked at the flickering street lamp that was covered by the swaying leaves. Hello little sister. He Ling smiled. You're still calling me little sister. Professor Luo Lin was probably more familiar with He Ling. He joked. Her father grew up watching your show. Haha, it's all your fault. You exposed my age. He Ling casually patted Poplar Fruit's shoulder and laughed. Professor Luo Lin, why is He Ling here? Zhang Yujie was excited but didn't dare to get close. She pulled Professor Luo Lin and asked softly. However, He Ling heard it. He turned his head and smiled at Zhang Yujie. It's the graduation ceremony of my alma mater. The principal invited me back to the school to give a report to the graduates. Professor Luo Lin added, yes, today's the last one at our school. Zhang Yujie stuck her tongue out in embarrassment. However, she wasn't shy for too long. She rummaged through her bag and found a sticky note. She generously signed it for He Ling. Poplar Fruit was tempted. He also asked for one and had He Ling sign it. It's getting late. Professor Luo Lin saw Principal Chi raising his hand to look at his watch and smiled. He Ling has to return to Nanhu after giving a report. She also has a show tomorrow. Let's end our conversation here. Poplar Fruit, come over with your master next time. Let's have a chat. He Ling apologetically shook hands with Poplar Fruit and smiled. I'm really pressed for time. If there's a chance in the future, come over to Nanhu. I'll treat you guys to a tour of the station. It's fine. You're also working hard on the show. Poplar Fruit smiled as he sent them off. After Professor Luo and the others left, Zhang Yujie nudged Poplar Fruit with her shoulder and chuckled. How was it? What do you mean how was it? Poplar Fruit asked despite knowing the answer. You won't regret coming for a walk with me, right? Zhang Yujie raised her head and proudly said. You're not happy that you can meet a superstar? I saw that you were pretty excited just now too. I really couldn't tell that you're also someone who chases after stars. Poplar Fruit smiled. Why can't I chase after stars? Zhang Yujie unhappily asked. You're just the second generation of the rich and powerful. Aren't those stars that you can summon as you wish? Poplar Fruit shrugged. Who said that? Zhang Yujie was unconvinced. You can't generalize, okay? I'm a good person. Haha, I'm not teasing you. You've already given yourself a good person card. Poplar Fruit laughed. Chapter 4:18. The next afternoon, Poplar Fruit had nothing to do, so he took Kiki for a stroll to Wen He. Then, he went to the company. The video was still in the middle of production. Several people in charge of editing and special effects were busy in a large office. Even old Kong, who had drunk the most yesterday, had rolled up his sleeves and was lying in front of the computer. Poplar Fruit took a look, then closed the door and came out. He smiled and pointed inside to Baiku and Cheon-juan and said, they were too engrossed. No one noticed me. Let's go. We won't disturb them. Because Yaosho and Zimo were directors, they were also inside directing the editing. Cheon-juan and Baiku, who had no skills, were just practicing dubbing in the recording studio. Along the way, Poplar Fruit could see that many people were engrossed in their new work, including Xiao Ji. She was wearing a cute blue dress and was holding a script and talking to herself. Mr. Yang, we won't accompany you. You are familiar with the place now. Why don't you walk around by yourself? Baiku scratched his head and asked. Since Baiku announced the investment of Poplar Fruit yesterday, Baiku began to use the title Mr. Yang for Poplar Fruit. Don't. Well, I mean don't call me Mr. Yang. Poplar Fruit corrected him. We are all friends. Look at me and Che. Don't we call each other by their names? Hee. Cheon-juan touched his handsome aquiline nose and smiled. I think it's weird to call you Poplar Fruit. How about we call you Little Mr. Yang? Poplar Fruit said angrily, you have to call me boss. Have you forgotten? What did you say when you begged me to fight with you? I just wanted to make a joke with everyone. You pushed me into the pit and owed me a big meal. Cheon-juan was depressed when he mentioned this matter. Haha, okay, let's not talk about it. You are going back to practice, right? How about I go with you? Poplar Fruit laughed. I can't just sit here and watch you sweat, right? So, Poplar Fruit followed Baiku and the others to WAN his recording studio. WAN his recording studio was very professional. Poplar Fruit was not familiar with this area, but when he saw the pure wooden room inside and outside, the floor, ceiling, and the surrounding walls were covered with soundproofing materials, and the professional recording equipment that looked like an airplane's control panel, he was dazzled. How could he not worship it? When Beast and the others first started their business, a music company closed down due to poor management. Beast spent 500,000 yuan to buy this set of equipment. If it was brand new, it would cost at least 1 million yuan. Baiku skillfully turned on the recording equipment and showed Poplar Fruit how to operate it. They really made a lot of money. Looking at the equipment that was still well maintained, Poplar Fruit nodded. He carefully held on to Kiki to prevent her from running around. It would be bad if she broke some parts. Kiki and her father walked into this unfamiliar environment. She was a little curious because everything around her was new and unfamiliar, except for the few displays on the control panel. Kiki felt that she recognized those. Weren't they TV? However, we don't need all of them yet. I'm now turning on the recording equipment. We can listen to our dubbing later. Baiku laughed. Because he had to study, Poplar Fruit stayed outside to watch. He sat in front of the control panel with his daughter in his arms. Through the vacuum soundproof glass window, he could see the situation inside the recording room. After Baiku went in, he gestured to Poplar Fruit and said a few words, but the soundproof effect of the recording room was so good that no sound came out. Fortunately, Poplar Fruit could understand that Baiku wanted him to put on the headphones. With a smile and an okay gesture, Poplar Fruit put on the monitoring headphones. Immediately, the voices of Baiku and the others came out. The voices were very clear, and because the microphone was covered with a layer of blowout cover, the noise was almost inaudible. Ah, Papa, Kiki wants it too. When Kiki saw Poplar Fruit put on the strange hat, she curiously waved her small hands and pulled the cord of the headphones. Okay, don't make trouble. Papa will put one on you too. Poplar Fruit helplessly picked up another monitoring headphone and put it on his daughter's ear upside down. For Kiki's little head, the headphones were too big. Poplar Fruit had to hold them for her. Otherwise, the weight of the headphones would be on Kiki's ears, which would be uncomfortable. While his heart was still on Kiki, Poplar Fruit found that the inside had already started. However, he didn't have time to listen carefully, because Kiki felt that the headphones were big and stuffy. All she could hear were the voices of the two uncles. It was not interesting at all, so she shook her little head again, trying to get rid of the burden. Well, you don't want it. Poplar Fruit helplessly took it off for her, and then held down his daughter's little hand that was about to move around curiously. After Kiki was controlled, Poplar Fruit finally had some thoughts back to the headphones. Fortunately, it was not an official dubbing, so Poplar Fruit did not miss anything. Baiku's voice was quite unique. He was a broadcasting professional and had done animation dubbing. Poplar Fruit felt immersive listening to him. It was just that some parts were spoken very quickly, and there was no time to breathe. Chaeyoung-juan's voice was slightly worse, but it may be that he had been trying to figure out the role of Jubaji for a long time. Listening to his voice, Poplar Fruit felt that it was very cheap and annoying. After a while, Kiki was bored and twisted around on her father's thigh. She was a little impatient. Baiku and Chaeyoung-juan had also stopped. They had different opinions on the dubbing of a witty sentence in the script and were discussing it inside. Little Director Yang, what do you think of our opinions? At this time, Baiku raised his head and said to Poplar Fruit through the vacuum glass window. Under Chaeyoung-juan's suggestion, Poplar Fruit's title was officially confirmed. Poplar Fruit's repeated objections were to no avail, so he could only accept it. Poplar Fruit heard Baiku's question through the monitoring headphones. He was about to give his opinion, but after saying a few words, he realized that his voice did not reach inside at all. It doesn't make sense. I clearly said it to the microphone. Poplar Fruit tilted his head and looked at the thin and long microphone in front of him. Little Director Yang, you didn't press the red button, right? Yes, that's it. Only when you press it will sound out. Baiku leaned in front of the window and instructed. Hey, hey. Poplar Fruit pressed the button and tested the sound. I heard it. Go ahead. Chaeyoung-juan laughed. My opinion is more amateur. I'm just casually talking about my feelings. Poplar Fruit laughed. He began to speak. However, halfway through his excited speech, there was suddenly a wave from inside. Chaeyoung-juan shouted, there's no sound again. Poplar Fruit looked down and saw that the little girl, Kiki, had reached out her small hand and pressed the red button. She turned her head and found that her little action was discovered by her father. She quickly shrank her neck and burrowed into her father's arms, laughing mischievously. Chapter 419. In the past, Poplar Fruit had always thought that dubbing was just about reading the script. What was so difficult about it? Moreover, they were dubbing their own characters. As long as they mouthed the right words, they would be able to complete the dubbing. However, when it was really his turn to practice in the recording studio, Poplar Fruit realized that it was not that simple. The difficult problems that he had imagined before, such as lip-syncing and finding the feelings during acting, did not appear because the video had not been completed yet. There was no need for lip-syncing. As for reading out the lines with great emotion, Poplar Fruit could do that after a while. However, they were all rejected by Baiku. Little Director Yang, this is not how our microfilm dubbing is done. Baiku took off his earmuffs and explained to Poplar Fruit, our position is to have a fast pace, just like Japanese. We give people a lot of information in a short period of time. If you read out a sentence slowly, it will make people feel strange. Poplar Fruit was a little confused. He was not like Baiku. The main actors in the crew all knew the style of calling beasts. When the time came, the film would definitely be in line with the saying, concentration is the essence. If he spoke slowly, the scene would flash to the next person, and there would be no time at all. Let me give you a demonstration. Baiku picked up his script and said, I'll talk about my own monologue. It's a more classic one. My name is Wang Dachui. Baiku read quickly. I never thought that I would find a job in the end. He said every sentence very quickly, but his pronunciation was clear and there was no delay. Then, he deliberately emphasized the word found to show a sense of impact. Even so, his tongue was still vibrating at a very high frequency. As for Baiku's plain-looking and expressionless confession, if one listened carefully, there seemed to be a lot of charm that could be dug out. Yang Guo played it repeatedly. Every time she listened to it, she had a different feeling. This could be said to be an important factor in the popularity of the microfilm and the subsequent miniseries. People did not get tired of watching it over and over again. However, even though Poplar Fruit had listened to Bai Ku's analysis and teachings, he still couldn't reach Bai Ku's level. This made Poplar Fruit feel a little depressed. What about the others? Other than Che and Juan, many of the main actors also came to the recording studio to practice when they were free. Poplar Fruit noticed that other than Bai Ku, Zhong Bunyu was also very good at dubbing. When he faced the microphone, he was like a completely different person. His style of speaking and even his voice were completely different from his own. Che and Juan's voice acting was considered one of the worst in the crew, but he was still much better than Poplar Fruit. It's okay. When the video comes out, you'll know how to read it. When the time comes, you can follow the video and finish reading the dialogue. Then, you can add a little bit of emotion into it. That will be enough. Bai Ku comforted Poplar Fruit. Bai Ku knew that he couldn't expect too much from Poplar Fruit. After all, there were specializations in the industry. Poplar Fruit wasn't in this line of work. The cameo was purely for fun. It was good enough if he could reach an average level. When he went back at night, Poplar Fruit was still figuring it out. Even though Bai Ku said that it was okay, Poplar Fruit was still a little unconvinced. He was also a person who didn't want to admit defeat. He felt that if Che and Juan could do it well, why couldn't he? Of course, Poplar Fruit had another thing to do at night, and that was to coax Kiki, who had been bored the whole afternoon and was throwing a tantrum. In the recording studio, Poplar Fruit was busy practicing and studying. He had no time to play with Kiki. The equipment in the recording studio was very delicate. Poplar Fruit was worried that Kiki would run around and break the equipment, so he always held Kiki in his arms. Kiki was different from children of the same age. She grew up faster. Now she could run around like a 2- or 3-year-old child. Moreover, she was in the most curious period of a child. She wanted to get to the bottom of everything. When she saw the microphone, she would ask, "Papa, why doesn't this microphone sound?" In her memory, when she used to sing with Bebe by the river, her voice would become louder when she spoke into the microphone. When she saw the vacuum glass window outside, she would ask, "Papa, why are Uncle and the others in the TV?" She still felt that the glass window was from the TV. Unfortunately, her father didn't show her the pleasant goat. In the end, Kiki was really bored, so she started to make trouble. She kept holding her father's neck and scratching his face, trying to break free and walk on the ground by herself. If Xiao Ji hadn't come later and she hadn't helped to take care of him for a while, Poplar Fruit would have been so tormented by her that he couldn't even aim the microphone properly. Tomorrow, he would definitely go to the recording studio to play. If Kiki was still unwilling, it would be difficult for Poplar Fruit to practice, not to mention that he would have to cooperate with the crew in the future. That's right. Poplar Fruit patted his head and thought of an idea. Isn't there a microphone there? He could let Kiki sing. Poplar Fruit smiled. For Kiki, singing was an irresistible temptation. What should he do? Poplar Fruit scratched his head. It didn't seem to be easy to implement. This was because if Kiki sang at the side, she would also affect Poplar Fruit and the crew. Why don't I just get a computer and let Chichi sit outside and watch cartoons? When Poplar Fruit was doing his dubbing inside, she could still see him through the glass window. This was a good idea. However, Poplar Fruit felt a little guilty. Because Poplar Fruit usually strictly limited Kiki's time to watch TV. Now, for his own convenience, he let Kiki watch TV freely. This was not very appropriate. Or we can combine it. Poplar Fruit's brain was still quite flexible. He thought of another alternative. When he went inside to practice his dubbing, he would let Kiki watch cartoons outside. He would try to shorten the practice time as much as possible. Anyway, he didn't have many lines, and most of the time, he spoke in other languages. As long as he mastered the technique, he would be able to draw inferences. After he came out, He would be able to take care of Kiki. At that time, they could go to the quiet room next door to sing. They just needed to bring a microphone over. There was definitely no shortage of microphones. The more Poplar Fruit thought about it, the more excited he became. He even thought of a recording studio. What was a recording studio for? That was a place to record songs. Only film companies would use it for dubbing. Why not take this opportunity to let Kiki record 2 songs? Poplar Fruit counted the songs that Kiki sang well. There were quite a lot. He would pick 2 of her best songs and record them for Fong Beibei. Poplar Fruit thought of Fong Beibei, who was far away in Yangcheng. Although she didn't say it, she still liked Kiki very much. If she could hear Kiki's songs, she would be very happy. Poplar Fruit had already changed the title of the song. It would be called Only Beibei is Good in the World. Chapter 420. Papa. Kiki's pleasant voice, like an oriole flying out of a valley, came out of the headset without any impurities. Yes. Poplar Fruit's happy response came out of the headset. The sun came out and the moon came out. Are you home? Kiki sang this string with a little effort, but she still managed to sing it. Even so, her recitation-like singing was still very pleasant. Yes. Poplar Fruit answered heartily. The stars came out. Where did the sun go? Kiki continued to sing. She was very good at the rhythm, and there was no sign of her being out of tune. In the sky. Poplar Fruit answered with a smile. I can't find him no matter how hard I try. Kiki sang better and better, and the feeling of difficulty gradually disappeared. He went home. Poplar Fruit's tongue turned. The sun, the stars, and the moon are the auspicious family. In this line of singing together, Kiki's childish voice and Poplar Fruit's mature and magnetic voice formed a sharp contrast. Kiki's voice was not covered by Poplar Fruit's voice. At this time, there were many people standing in the control room outside the recording studio. Yaoshou and Xiao Ji, who had heard the news, came over. There were also many others who came to watch the fun. There were only 3 professional earplugs for monitoring, but there were many excuses for diversion. They even brought their own earplugs to plug into the computer. It had been 3 days since Poplar Fruit entered the recording studio for the first time. The production of the video was coming to an end. Poplar Fruit and the other actors in the crew also had a big breakthrough in the dubbing practice. As for Kiki, she was fascinated by the magical microphone. At first, it was just an ordinary microphone, but the technical and recording engineer, Shui, gave her a small software on the computer, and Kiki could hear her own singing voice. When they were free, Poplar Fruit took Kiki to record 2 songs in the recording studio. One was Kiki's best song, and the other was Beibei is Only Good in the World, which was rewritten by Poplar Fruit. At that time, when Kiki sang Beibei is Only Good in the World, Kiki and her father were playing happily in the recording studio, but the people outside all had a strange expression. Before, in everyone's mind, Poplar Fruit and Zheng Yujie were obviously a couple. Not only were they often in and out of people's sight, but they were also investing together. And the way Zheng Yujie looked at Poplar Fruit was not pure at all, okay? Even the way Poplar Fruit looked at Zheng Yujie made everyone think that he was trying to hide something. But now, everyone heard correctly. Kiki sang Beibei is Only Good in the World. The pronunciation of the name Beijing and Yujie were very different. There was no mistaking it. This name should be a girl's name, and the song was originally to praise her mother. If this girl's name was used, no one would believe that this name belonged to my daughter who was the same age as Kiki. Using this song to sing about my daughter of the same age, wasn't this nonsense? At that time, Bai Ku and Xiao Ji looked at Cheonjuan together. Cheonjuan scratched his head and said, "Why are you looking at me?" "I don't know." He really didn't know. For the 2 girls around Poplar Fruit that he had secretly taken photos of before, he only knew the name Duan Xueqing. Who knew if this Beibei was Poplar Fruit's girlfriend? Cheonjuan had long recognized Poplar Fruit's romantic in his heart. Wasn't this a romantic youth? Cheonjuan didn't think there was any problem. As for President Yang's emotional problems, outsiders like them had no right to speak, and it was not good to discuss too much. They just turned a blind eye. After recording the song, Poplar Fruit directly copied it into the computer and sent it to Fong Beibei. Just as he was snickering, Fong Beibei didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she listened to the song. She was a little touched, but she still couldn't help but send him a throwing chair emoji. She said indignantly, "MPH, I won't be captured so easily by you." Thus, Poplar Fruit saw Fong Beibei type 3 lines of words, "You're not like Beibei's life. You're the one who's gone. Weird uncle." After reading these 3 lines, Poplar Fruit also found that Fong Beibei had decisively gone offline. The science genius also changed her status. "I said 2 months, so it's 2 months. I'm determined not to be disturbed." Well, Poplar Fruit angrily closed the computer. Later, Poplar Fruit suddenly had an idea. Why not sing a song with Kiki? Although he didn't sing well, wasn't there a legend in the entertainment industry about recording studio singers? In the recording studio, he could sing repeatedly until he was not out of tune. Coupled with the post-production of the tuner, people who didn't know how to sing could sing to the standard of a master. Poplar Fruit's idea wasn't considered cheating. He just wanted to leave a precious memory with Kiki. Anyway, the song he sang with Kiki would at most be posted on Weibo. It wasn't like he would use it to cheat money. Thus, under Poplar Fruit's careful selection, there was the auspicious 3 treasures that he sang with Kiki. This song became popular as early as a few years ago during the Spring Festival Gala. It was still sung in many people's mobile phone ringtones. However, there was a problem. There were 2 of them. First of all, the auspicious 3 treasures sang about parents and daughters. Poplar Fruit only had him and Kiki. Where did the mother come from? He couldn't possibly find Zheng Yujie or a girl who could sing to fool them, right? If Fong Beibei saw it, how upset would she be? It was still the same old method. Poplar Fruit finally changed the lyrics and changed all the parts about the mother to the father. There was another problem. The auspicious 3 treasures part was in Mongolian. He and Kiki didn't know Mongolian. Did they have to cut out the beginning and end? If it were anyone else, they would probably give up just like that. But who was Poplar Fruit? He was a master of languages. So what if they didn't know Mongolian? They could learn it now. What about Kiki? It didn't matter. They could learn it. Although it was impossible for Poplar Fruit to learn the entire Mongolian language in 1 or 2 days, Poplar Fruit could learn the basic pronunciation. Then, through his teaching, Kiki could also learn to sing the lyrics as long as the sound was similar. There were still some difficulties and twists. Poplar Fruit and Kiki practiced many times after they went back to the hotel. However, this learning speed was still very monstrous. For Kiki, who was less than 1.5 years old, her monstrous level was more powerful than Poplar Fruit. After singing a few times and entering the recording studio, Poplar Fruit felt that he was in a good state. His lyrics were only a few words, so he didn't have to worry too much about being out of tune. In addition, his voice was originally good. The people outside heard it through the earphones and praised him non-stop. Of course, they were praising Kiki. "Shunner, take a picture. Did you take a picture?" Calling Show took a break from the busy work and even directed his exclusive cameraman to take a picture of Poplar Fruit. He was going to make a music video for Poplar Fruit. Although it couldn't be released on the market because of the copyright, didn't Poplar Fruit want to play? He might as well play a big one. Chapter 421. The production of the auspicious 3 treasures MV was very simple. It just needed to be edited a little, add some dazzling lights and cutscenes, and then match with the already recorded music track. After it was done, Yaosho copied the video to Poplar Fruit. That night, Poplar Fruit was especially solemn. He took a bath and changed clothes, then climbed into bed with his freshly washed daughter to watch the video. Kiki was hugged in her father's arms, her wet hair sticking to her father's waist. She was still too young, so Poplar Fruit put a pillow under her butt. Otherwise, she would sink into the quilt. Kiki looked at the computer screen expectantly. She still didn't know what to watch. But as long as she watched the TV, something interesting would definitely jump out. She opened the video. It was like the MVs of celebrities nowadays. There was a nice prelude. Poplar Fruit hugged Kiki and entered the scene. Under the editing, the scene in front didn't drag too much, as if it was fast-forwarded. Kiki soon sat down on the BB high chair. The subtitles showed the auspicious three treasures and the names of the singers, Poplar Fruit and Young Luochi. Of course, Kiki didn't recognize them. She just strangely saw herself on the TV. Kiki happily pulled her father's finger, her little butt twisting as she pointed at the computer screen. "I know you're in there. Keep watching, it's time to sing." Poplar Fruit smiled and touched Kiki's hair, helping her to tidy up her wet and tangled hair. Not long after, Chichi's slightly excited and light singing voice came from the computer's speakers. Kiki's voice was very nice, but Poplar Fruit found that the voice he heard in the MV was more mellow and sweet than Kiki's voice when he heard her sing live. The role of the tuner was displayed here. Hearing her own voice, Kiki's mouth opened into a cute O shape. She finally understood that she was the one singing. "Ying." Kiki shyly called out, her two little hands covering her eyes. He didn't know if she was embarrassed because her singing wasn't that nice or if she was just trying to cover her ears and steal a bell. Poplar Fruit felt a bump in his stomach. He took a look and found that Kiki had squeezed into his arms. Originally, Poplar Fruit was worried that his daughter would be too shy and unhappy, but he saw that Kiki's two little hands covering her face. Poplar Fruit saw Kiki's big eyes, blinking as she stared at the computer screen. Poplar Fruit, his eyes, his eyes, his eyes, his hand, pressed the space key, pausing the video. Although she didn't see Poplar Fruit's actions clearly, and didn't understand how the video was paused, Kiki could guess that it must have been her father, the big bad guy, who did it. She stopped pretending and let go of her hands, hugging her father's right hand and moaning, "Ha ha." Poplar Fruit laughed proudly and restarted the video with his other hand. The video was only a few minutes long. After watching it, Kiki reluctantly hugged the computer and watched it a few more times until her father urged her to go to bed. Poplar Fruit uploaded the MV to a video website that night, and then posted it on Weibo. He also proudly posted a few photos of him and Kiki playing in Beijing. Of course, on Weibo, he didn't forget to thank Beast and the others. The photos were seriously inconsistent with the video, but the Weibo post instantly ignited everyone's enthusiasm. Poplar Fruit closed Weibo and pondered over his translation experience. In just 2 hours, Poplar Fruit turned around and found that the Weibo post had been forwarded more than 50,000 times, and the number of his Weibo fans had increased by more than 20,000. Looking at this number, it was still rising. Beast and the others' reposts had a big effect, but the father-daughter pair's warm duet made many people envious. Just look at the envious, jealous, and hateful comments on Poplar Fruit's Weibo. There were still many questions in the comments, and to summarize, there were 2 more popular questions. The first one asked if Poplar Fruit was going to bring his daughter into the entertainment industry. The second one asked about Kiki's various information, such as her birth date and horoscope. There was also a guy with no integrity who asked Poplar Fruit's criteria for choosing a son-in-law. It seemed like Kiki's cuteness had already broken through the age barrier and captured the hearts of many strange uncles from all angles. Poplar Fruit felt that it was fun, so he posted a reply to everyone's comments. "Haha, I didn't expect everyone to be so enthusiastic." As for the questions in the comments, here are the answers. Firstly, I came to Beijing this time because of some investment reasons, and I made a guest appearance in Beast's micro-movie unexpectedly. This micro-movie is very funny and awesome, so please look forward to it. As for Kiki and I, we have never planned to enter the entertainment industry. Secondly, for those who have designs on Kiki, hehe, Poplar Fruit is already sharpening his knife, so don't even think about escaping. This Weibo post was half joking and half serious. If anyone really had designs on them, Poplar Fruit would definitely send them flying with a punch. A daughter was the apple of a father's eye and the apple of Poplar Fruit's eye. Seeing her grow up day by day, how could Poplar Fruit bear to let Kiki marry off? When Poplar Fruit's Weibo post was sent out, the fans who received a reply were all excited. They became happier, and even shouted in the comments section, "Father-in-law, post the address. Even if I die, I want to die at Kiki's feet." The flood of comments made Poplar Fruit break out in a cold sweat. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and decided to ignore this bunch of immoral people and go to sleep. Poplar Fruit didn't know that Poplar Fruit's video and Weibo post had become the hottest topic on Weibo the next day. At the same time that he and Kiki became popular online, Beast's micro-movie also gained a certain amount of popularity. Coincidentally, Poplar Fruit gave unexpectedly a free promotion. This was all for later. When Poplar Fruit returned to Wanhe the next day, the video was already done. Poplar Fruit didn't have many scenes and he had to stay in Beijing for almost half a month because of this matter. Beast felt a little apologetic and arranged for Poplar Fruit's dubbing to start first. Baiku and Poplar Fruit were dubbing together at the beginning. Although they had rehearsed many times before, Poplar Fruit still felt a lot of pressure when dubbing together with Baiku. The contrast was too obvious. Fortunately, Baiku was right. With the video, the rhythm of dubbing was easier to grasp. After failing more than 10 times, Poplar Fruit finally got the hang of it. Once there was a first, there would be a second. After Poplar Fruit got into the zone, his dubbing efficiency increased. In the end, Poplar Fruit used less than half a day to complete a total of 27 lines. Poplar Fruit knew that this high efficiency wasn't because of his talent but because of his continuous practice and understanding over the past few days. No matter what, Poplar Fruit was done with unexpectedly. The rest, including the release of the video, didn't have anything to do with Poplar Fruit. Professional matters should be left to the professionals. After staying in Beijing for so long, Poplar Fruit was finally going to return to Yangcheng. Chapter 422. As soon as he got off the plane, Poplar Fruit turned on his phone and found that his phone was full of missed calls. He opened it and saw that they were all from Fat Dragon. "What's wrong with this guy?" Poplar Fruit frowned. "Why did he call me so many times?" "Fat Dragon, this guy, do you guys remember him? Usually, he was an otaku. Even though he owned a software company, the company was set up in his house, and a few like-minded people all lived in the same courtyard. According to his temper, even if the sky fell, he would not take the initiative to call Poplar Fruit. He was acting so strangely this time. Could there be something wrong with him? He carried Kiki onto the big suitcase and told her to hold on to the handle. Then, Poplar Fruit pushed her out of the airport. "Let's take the car." Even though she was facing the back and walking backwards, Kiki was still very excited. She held on to the handle with one hand and waved the other hand. Poplar Fruit pressed on the phone while paying attention to Kiki's movements, afraid that she would accidentally fall. After the call connected, Poplar Fruit held the phone between his shoulder and ear. His free hand could press on Kiki's back to prevent her from falling. "Hey, Fruit, why didn't you turn on your phone?" Fat Dragon asked casually. "Did you sleep the whole day?" "Bullshit." Poplar Fruit laughed. "Do you think I'm as sleepy as you? I just got off the plane and the plane doesn't allow me to turn on my phone, so I turned it off." "What's the emergency? You called more than 20 times. Ah. Where are you flying to?" Fat Dragon did not answer directly and asked in surprise. "We didn't go anywhere." Poplar Fruit laughed. "I just flew back to Guangzhou from Beijing. But don't think about gifts, I didn't buy anything this time." "You went to play with your daughter, didn't you?" Fat Dragon pursed his lips and said, "What a coincidence. I was just about to look for you when you came back from the capital. It would be convenient if you were still there." "You're also in the capital?" Poplar Fruit stopped in surprise and asked, "Why are you looking for me? Do you want me to go back?" "No, I'm still at home. A friend from Beijing wants to look for you. You don't have to go back. I'll get him to fly over here to find you." "I have to go to Yangcheng as well," Fat Dragon said with a smile. "By the way, you won't be going anywhere for the next 2 days, right? Don't go missing when I look for you." "I didn't go anywhere. They're all in the apartment." I'll send you the address later, Poplar Fruit said. But by the way, why are you looking for me? I can't explain it clearly over the phone. Let's talk about it when the time comes. I have your address. Cousin gave it to me before, but I don't think I've been there yet. Okay, let's not talk about it anymore. I have a friend here looking for me, Fat Dragon said and hung up the phone. He was the kind of person who didn't like to drag things out. Even if he made a phone call, he would be annoyed if he talked for a few hours. So after talking for a few minutes, Fat Dragon was already impatient. Poplar Fruit didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he took the phone off his shoulder and put it in his pocket. He still didn't understand why Fat Dragon was looking for him. He only told him the information of a friend from Beijing and nothing else. I'm speechless. Poplar Fruit shook his head and continued to push Kiki, who was already making a fuss when the car stopped outside the airport. Today was a work day. Because Poplar Fruit went to Beijing and commandeered Poplar Fruit's Land Rover, Song Jiwen had to go to work. This meant that Poplar Fruit and Kiki could only take a taxi back. It was fine to take a taxi, but there weren't many cars. Poplar Fruit made a phone call a little late, and the taxis outside had all left. After waiting for a while, Poplar Fruit took out his phone and prepared to call a taxi driver that he often called to pick him up. Fortunately, there was a taxi that came late to Shanshan. We're back. Poplar Fruit hugged Kiki's stomach with one hand and hugged her to his chest. With the other hand, he carried the big suitcase up the stairs. The familiar apartment building and the familiar elevator felt really good. When he walked to the door of his house, Poplar Fruit could hear the sound of claws scratching the door in Song Jiwen's house. There was no need to guess. It must be Goldie, the little guy, who heard that Kiki was back and wanted to rush out to see her. Kiki didn't know it was Goldie. She walked over curiously and tilted her head to look at it, a little scared and a little curious. Woof, woof. Poplar Fruit was still opening the door when Goldie's bark suddenly came out, startling Kiki. However, Kiki also quickly recognized it. She ran over, grabbed Poplar Fruit's trousers, raised her head and asked, "Papa, Goldie, Goldie." Poplar Fruit squatted down with a smile and picked up Kiki. He said, "Papa knows. I'm going to open the door and get the key." Before they had time to drag the suitcase into the house, Poplar Fruit went in first and took Song Jiwen's spare key. He went back to the corridor and opened the door of Song Jiwen's house. As soon as he opened the door, a golden fluffy shadow rushed out and happily circled around Poplar Fruit's feet. Then it sniffed up and down and couldn't help but pull Poplar Fruit's trousers and stand up. Poplar Fruit put down Kiki, who was happily struggling in his arms, and then pressed Goldie down and said with a smile, "Come on, let Papa see how you have been with Uncle Mosquito for more than half a month. Well, you've grown a lot. However, you've also gained a lot of weight. You must not exercise." Poplar Fruit patted Goldie's back gently. Goldie kept struggling, and Kiki also ran over to pull Poplar Fruit's hand. Poplar Fruit laughed and let go of Goldie to be intimate with Kiki. Goldie had grown a lot. Its size and weight were nearly twice as big as Kiki's. Being bumped by Goldie, Kiki couldn't stand and fell to the ground. Poplar Fruit was shocked and quickly bent down to check. However, when he saw that Kiki didn't feel much pain and kept laughing, Poplar Fruit was relieved. This reckless guy still had some sense of propriety. After closing Song Jiwen's door, Poplar Fruit carried the suitcase and took the two little guys home. As he packed, he scolded Goldie, "You and your Uncle Mosquito must have eaten a lot of junk food and didn't exercise. Look at how fat you are. Be careful, you won't be able to walk in the future. From tomorrow onwards, you and Kiki have to exercise with Papa. Do you understand?" Poplar Fruit carried a stack of clothes and put them down in the bedroom. Behind him was still the bell-like laughter and Goldie's low growls. Everything he said was in vain. No one, dog, listened to him. When he came out, he found that Goldie had already jumped onto the back of the sofa, and Kiki was still struggling to climb onto the sofa. Poplar Fruit looked at them for a while with his hands on his waist. He shook his head and ignored the two little guys who had already gone crazy from playing. He had just come back and had a lot of things to deal with. How could he have the time to care so much? Chapter 423. In the evening, Poplar Fruit practiced 3 hours of Thai and Hindi translation. Then he laid on his bed and began to plan his vacation. When he was walking with Zheng Yujie in Beijing, Yang Guo wasn't just casually talking about it. He wanted to free up more than a month for a vacation. Otherwise, his life would be completely immersed in work and learning. What fun would there be to speak of? Where to go during his vacation was also a problem. It was like a white-collar worker in an office building worrying about what to eat for lunch. It was not that there was nothing to eat, but that there were too many choices. There were so many fun places to go. It seemed that with money and time, all of these could become his choices. But where should he go? Right, didn't Big Brother Yarrow de Hua suggest that he go fishing with him? Although fishing was not fun, going out to sea on a yacht and feeling the blue sea and blue sky was a very enjoyable thing. He could also go to Nanhai Island. It had the most beautiful beach in the country and all kinds of tropical scenery. Poplar Fruit had been there once when he was young, and he still yearned for it. He could consider it. Poplar Fruit closed his eyes and smiled slightly. In his imagination, the waves on the beach gently hit the reef. That slow and rhythmic sound accompanied Poplar Fruit to sleep. The next day, Song Jiwen pushed open the door and came in. He picked up his breakfast from the dining table and threw the car key into Poplar Fruit's arms. "Here, I'll return the car to you. I'm going to work. Don't you need to drive? I'm waiting for someone today. I won't go out." Poplar Fruit was drinking milk with Kiki. When he raised his head to take the key, Kiki, who was drinking milk from a small wooden bowl, also raised her head because of Uncle Mosquito's action. Both father and daughter had a white mustache on their lips. It was really like father like daughter. "Why would he drive your car to work? The Land Rover is even more high-end than our leaders. Isn't it courting death if we drive there?" Song Jiwen rolled his eyes and said. After Song Jiwen left, Poplar Fruit had nothing to do. He was a person who couldn't stay idle. Originally, he didn't want to do anything and take a break. However, when he saw the sun shining so brightly, he couldn't help but take a book to the balcony and sit down to read. Kiki, on the other hand, pulled out a small wooden box and flipped through the toys that Poplar Fruit had painstakingly organized yesterday. She took out the new toys that she had brought back from the capital and showed them to Jinzi. Goldie squeezed next to her and lay on its stomach. It stuck out its tongue and wagged its tail. She didn't know if it understood Kiki's words. It was said that Fat Dragon would only arrive in the evening, so Poplar Fruit still had a whole day to waste. He suddenly remembered that the summary of his translation experience had been completed. It wasn't a lot, only about 100,000 words. It wasn't even enough to publish a book. Should he send it to Yarrow de Hua and let the Shindar Translation Research Institute ponder over it? He planned to use this material to teach a few classes after the Shindar Translation training course started. However, I have integrated a lot of my understanding and thinking of various translation theories into this book. I wonder if it will be too profound for most people to understand. Speaking of translation theory, Poplar Fruit suddenly felt that this material should be shown to his supervisor. After all, it was a summary of the stages. There was also a theory that he had boldly proposed. If director Chen Zhongdai knew that he had taught an immature theory to someone else without letting him read it, he might be so angry that he would pick up a broom and chase after him. Therefore, Poplar Fruit turned on his computer and attached his manuscript to an email and sent it to Chen Zhongdai. After that, he made a phone call and said, "Director, I recently wrote something. I want you to help me review it." "What is it?" The director seemed to be eating something. He wriggled his mouth and asked vaguely, "Is it a thesis?" "I don't think I assigned you a thesis, right?" "Oh right, I forgot to assign you a thesis." Poplar Fruit was sweating. He didn't expect that a phone call would almost drag him into a trap. He scratched his head and said, "Director, it's the holidays now. Let's talk about the thesis next semester. I wrote that article myself. It's just a summary. You can just read it as a thought report." "I'm just kidding. Look at how scared you are. With your level, writing a thesis is a piece of cake," Chen Zhongdai laughed. Poplar Fruit also heard his wife complaining next to him, "Don't laugh while eating. Be careful not to choke." "Okay, I'll stop talking. I'll read it when I have time. Let's eat, let's eat." Chen Zhongdai's voice came from the phone before he hung up. Yang Guo didn't continue listening. He pressed a button on his phone and put it down in a state of shock. Chen Zhongdai was actually right. With Poplar Fruit's current level, a thesis was no longer a problem for him. Poplar Fruit held Chen Zhongdai's book list and didn't know how many books and theses on translation theory he had read. However, anyone who had experienced the pain of writing theses in the last year of university would not have a good impression of writing theses. Even Poplar Fruit was the same. He still remembered the painful experience of reading a few big books and revising countless times when he was writing theses. Without the scary task of writing theses, this was still good. Poplar Fruit breathed a sigh of relief. At least his holiday could go on happily. Now was not bad. The quiet and peaceful days were still very comfortable. Cooking, drying sheets, and the sun was just right. In this fast-paced metropolis, Yang Guo has a car and a house. Renting a house is fine, he has money anyway, so he can buy it if he wants. He also has a daughter and a dog. The only thing he lacks is a female owner. Fong Beibei's face appeared in Poplar Fruit's mind. It was as if they were back in their teacher's apartment. In that small apartment, Fong Beibei with her sleeves rolled up and wearing an apron was squeezed in the small kitchen with Poplar Fruit. The two of them inadvertently looked at each other and sparks seemed to fly. Speaking of which, after Poplar Fruit returned to Yangcheng, his longing for Fong Beibei grew rapidly. Is this love? Poplar Fruit still didn't quite understand. What was the difference between wanting a woman to be your wife and your daughter's mother and loving a woman? Is there really a difference? He also didn't understand why Fong Beibei would care about these things. However, Poplar Fruit was already regretting it a little. What he regretted was that he had been so foolish in the rain. When faced with this kind of question, he should have just told her the answer she wanted to hear. Now that Fong Beibei is hiding, she won't let you see her. You have 2 months to regret it. Half a month has already passed, there's still 1.5 months left. Poplar Fruit held his head and sighed. Chapter 424. When it was almost 5 o'clock, Poplar Fruit finally received a call from Fat Dragon. "Hello, Fruit, I picked up my friend." Fat Dragon's phone was very noisy, he was probably on the street. "Do you have any restaurant recommendations? My friend wants to treat you to a meal." Poplar Fruit laughed. "There's no need to spend so much money, right? He came all the way from Beijing. There's a need. He still has a favor to ask of you. Just say it, he's also a big boss." Fat Dragon laughed and said, "A favor to ask of me? I'm just a scholar. What do I have that's worth your attention?" Poplar Fruit laughed. "If that's the case, then let's go to Yu Wang Palace. The Cantonese food there is more authentic. It seems like he won't be eating at home today." Poplar Fruit put the dishes back into the fridge. After changing his clothes, Poplar Fruit brought Kiki out and drove to Yu Wang Palace restaurant. When they were leaving, Kiki pestered Poplar Fruit to bring Gold along. Seeing Kiki and Gold looking at him with their watery eyes, Poplar Fruit's heart almost softened. He finally patted Kiki's little head and said, "It's not good to bring Gold to eat this time. Next time, okay? The next time Daddy takes you out to play, I'll definitely bring Gold along." After much persuasion, Kiki reluctantly nodded. Actually, Poplar Fruit wasn't being perfunctory with Kiki. If there was a chance to bring Gold on a vacation, Poplar Fruit definitely wouldn't leave it at home. If he left it to Song Jiwen, it would become a little fat dog in the blink of an eye. When they arrived at Yu Wang Palace, Poplar Fruit saw Fat Dragon standing at the door with a balding middle-aged man beside him. Fat Dragon's friend? Looks like he's quite old. How did he make such a big friend? Aren't his friends all tech nerds? With a stomach full of questions, Poplar Fruit got out of the car with Kiki in his arms. Although Kiki wanted to get out and walk by herself, there was a lot of traffic outside the restaurant, Poplar Fruit was worried. Fat Dragon, why are you waiting outside? I have the private room number. Can't I just go and find you? Young Gua walked over with a smile and punched Fat Dragon's shoulder as she spoke. Hey, Gua Gua, you're here. Fat Dragon turned his head and smiled. He pulled Poplar Fruit and introduced him to his friend. Uncle Hu, this is the Poplar Fruit I told you about. He's the original designer of Blizzard's new game. Poplar Fruit didn't know why Fat Dragon mentioned this. Very few people knew about this. Other than Poplar Fruit's close friends, he only mentioned it to a few family members. Of course, this included Fat Dragon. They had been friends for more than 10 years, and because of Poplar Fruit's brother-in-law, they were considered relatives. Poplar Fruit said humbly, No, it's just one of the reasons. Fat Dragon continued to introduce, Uncle whose name is Three Tigers Xing. Fruit, you might not have heard of his real name, but you definitely have heard of his pen name. You can't say it. Can't say it. Why can't I say it? Poplar Fruit was a little confused by Fat Dragon's last 3 words. However, memories from many years ago struck Poplar Fruit like a bolt of lightning, and he immediately reacted. Can't say it. Master can't say it. Poplar Fruit opened his eyes and said happily, You mean Master can't say it? Poplar Fruit, hello. Nice to meet you. Three Tigers Xing reached out his hand and shook Poplar Fruit's hand. He asked curiously, You still remember my pen name? Three Tigers Xing didn't use the word no, but remember, because this pen name used to be quite famous. However, it had been almost 5 years since he last used it. Of course, I remember. Back then, I followed your mercenary world. Poplar Fruit laughed. I still remember that when I graduated from junior high school, I didn't have much money. I couldn't find any books in the rental bookstore, so I went to Fat Dragon's place and used his computer to read. At that time, I didn't know what was wrong with Fat Dragon, but the chapters on his computer were more than what you posted online. If it wasn't for Fat Dragon's terrible writing skills, I would have thought that it was Fat Dragon who wrote it. Ah, ha ha. Fat Dragon laughed dryly. He almost jumped up and covered Poplar Fruit's mouth. He really touched a sore spot. This was Fat Dragon's dark history. Three Tigers Xing couldn't help but laugh. Then you should know what's going on now, right? Poplar Fruit laughed and looked at Fat Dragon. Fat Dragon waved his hand and said, Sigh, you exposed me again. It's okay, Uncle Who knows about this too. At that time, I was reading online and thought that Uncle Who was updating too slowly, so I hacked into Uncle Who's computer and copied all the chapters. Luckily, you didn't leak it out. Otherwise, I would have suffered a huge loss. Three Tigers Xing laughed. Speaking of which, Poplar Fruit, the rental bookstore you mentioned is also a pirated book. It's not as good as the ones you and Fat Dragon read. At least, it's barely considered authentic. It wasn't convenient to talk outside, so Three Tigers Xing invited Poplar Fruit into the private room. After sitting down, Poplar Fruit asked curiously, Right, Fat Dragon, how did you and Uncle Who meet? We didn't know each other until we fought. Third Tiger Xing answered for Fat Dragon. He smiled and said, One day, when I came back from work, I was sitting in front of the computer writing. Suddenly, a notepad frame popped up. I was shocked at that time. Let me guess, was it Fat Dragon who urged you to update? Poplar Fruit laughed. Fat Dragon was also laughing at the side, but he didn't reply. Three Tiger Xing continued, That's right. The words in the notebook popped up on their own. That tone was the same as my book review page. They even confidently said that I'm not good enough and that I only update once a day or something. At that time, I was in happy times, and was considered a high-ranking person. I was usually very busy, so how could I have time to update? Three Tigers Xing said. Even now, I still think that updating once a day is a hooligan's behavior. How uncomfortable is it to keep the readers in suspense every day? Fat Dragon laughed and said. Did you update more after that? Poplar Fruit asked curiously. At that time, he had already gone to high school in the city, so he didn't remember what happened after. Nope. Fat Dragon laughed. That's why I'm still brooding about it. You're considered the best out of all the readers, okay? Three Tigers Xing laughed. You're the first person in the world to see my updates, and you're still not satisfied. Anyway, it's because of this matter that we got to know each other. Three Tigers Xing recalled, I used to work in Jinshan. Although I wasn't in the Poison Tyrant software department, I still have some understanding of hackers. My computer's anti-intrusion system was pretty advanced, but it was still broken by Long Ou, Fat Dragon's name. At that time, I knew that his hacking skills were strong. Ari, that's all in the past. Fat Dragon said modestly. New week, looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Chapter 425. After ordering, Tiger Xing asked Poplar Fruit if he wanted to drink. Tiger Xing was from Shanzhong province, so alcohol was a must for every meal in the north. However, they were in the south, and he was facing Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit smiled as he declined. He used Kiki as an excuse, so Tiger Xing didn't force him. Although he knew that Tiger Xing wasn't just here to chat, Poplar Fruit was still curious, and continued to chat. Oh right, Uncle Hu, I haven't seen you write a new book after finishing Mercenary World. Did you change your pen name? No, I haven't. Tiger Xing smiled. I went to work for an MMORPG company. Uncle Hu even became the CEO of that company. Fat Dragon added, I've played their MMORPG before. It's average, but Uncle Hu runs it well. Oh. Poplar Fruit nodded as he thought about it. Games. Poplar Fruit was starting to understand why Tiger Xing was here. I'm not here today because of Genghis Khan's game. Tiger Xing was good at reading people's expressions. He smiled and said, I've already resigned from my previous company, and started my own company called Le Dong Joyeux. Finally, they got to the main topic. Yang Guo nodded and continued to listen. Our company is currently working on a game called IMMT. Are you familiar with this name, Poplar Fruit? Tiger Xing asked. Poplar Fruit shook his head lightly. Not really, I haven't played a game in a long time. But I think I've seen it on the internet. It's based on a cartoon, right? That's right, our game is based on the cartoon and has the same name. Tiger Xing smiled and introduced, to put it simply, it's an MMORPG, but we're using a card battle mode. Players can collect and combine various cards to level up. This way, our players can experience the thrill of an MMORPG without having to do too much. Sounds pretty good. Poplar Fruit nodded and said, I agree with you. If mobile games are too demanding, no one will play them. Poplar Fruit, you can give it a try. I've brought our initial version of the game today. After receiving Poplar Fruit's praise, Tiger Xing excitedly took out an iPad from his backpack and handed it to Poplar Fruit. This game hasn't been released yet. It's still being perfected, Three Tiger Xing said as he looked at Poplar Fruit carefully. Poplar Fruit took it and looked at it carefully. I haven't played games in a long time. It's not bad for Fat Dragon to try out this game, but it's a waste for me to play it. Poplar Fruit tapped on the iPad a few times before putting it down. Kiki was very interested in the iPad. She poked her head and hand out from time to time, wanting to touch it. I've played it before. It's pretty fun, Fat Dragon smiled as he poured everyone a cup of tea. But isn't your logo very similar to Blizzard's Warcraft? Poplar Fruit asked curiously. Haha, to be exact, it's World of Warcraft. Three Tiger Xing smiled and said, we've copied many of the classic World of Warcraft dungeons. Won't that be a violation of copyright? Poplar Fruit asked, puzzled. It's hard to say. It depends on Blizzard's mood. Three Tiger Xing said awkwardly, we're not plagiarizing. It's not plagiarizing at all. We're just changing our style and method to reflect the dungeon's storyline. So, you're here today because you want me to plead with Blizzard so that they won't pursue the matter? Poplar Fruit suddenly asked. Three Tiger Xing was stunned. He shook his head and said, no, we've already considered this when we were designing the game. Although we've used some references, it's not plagiarism. So, even if Blizzard pursues the matter, we won't have any evidence to use against them. Alright, don't keep me in suspense. Fat Dragon impatiently picked up a dish that had just been served and put it into his mouth. He said, "Let's eat first. Let me tell you, Gwuzzy. Uncle Tiger came here today for nothing else but your 2 free promotional spots for Blizzard. So it's really that." Poplar Fruit suddenly realized. He had already guessed it when 3 Tiger Shing said that he worked for a game company. Poplar Fruit couldn't help but look at Fat Dragon with a grumpy expression. It was all because of his big mouth. Not many people knew that Poplar Fruit had made a lot of money by selling card games. Other than Zhang Yujie, Song Jiwen, and a few other close friends, only a few family members knew. Even Poplar Fruit's parents didn't know the details. Poplar Fruit had met Fat Dragon the last time he went back. Poplar Fruit had talked to him about it. Poplar Fruit didn't say how much money he had made, but he had also talked about the thrill of visiting Blizzard and the fact that Blizzard had promised to help him promote the 2 games for free because they owed him a favor. However, he still smiled and said, "I think this promise is nonsense. I don't know anything about game design. This is just a blind cat meeting a dead mouse. If you really want to thank me, you might as well give me cash. Yes, Poplar Fruit, I really need your 2 spot." 3 Tiger Shing said sincerely, "There aren't many good domestic games, but I think that with Blizzard's recommendation and our own hard work, we can definitely make the best domestic game." Poplar Fruit asked curiously, "Don't you only have IMMT? Why do you need 2 spots?" 3 Tiger Shing said a little embarrassedly, "One of the slots is for IMMT, and the other is for the game that I'm going to modify with Mercenary World." Poplar Fruit admitted that Mercenary of the World was indeed very suitable for a game. The setting, the map, the variety of characters, and the various races were all unique. However, being suitable for a game didn't mean that it could be adapted into a fun game. There were many excellent novels that had been ruined by game developers. Seeing that Poplar Fruit was hesitating, Fat Dragon persuaded, "Poplar Fruit, those 2 spots are useless to you anyway. Why don't you sell them and exchange them for money? Isn't that what you said to me?" Poplar Fruit glared at him and said, "How is that the same? I said that Blizzard would give me money. These 2 spots are the favors that Blizzard and my friends owe me. If I exchange them for money, am I still human? Can we still be friends?" That, cough cough. 3 Tiger Shing waved his hand weakly between them and coughed. He said a little embarrassedly, "Poplar Fruit, I don't want to buy them with money." He stammered and said with a red face, "Our company doesn't have much money now. We can't afford to buy them." "Moreover, with our many years of friendship, why would I trick you?" Poplar Fruit wanted to say something, but Fat Dragon interrupted him. "Listen to me first. I've been in contact with Uncle Who all these years. He's a good person, and he's very good at business. He's someone who can accomplish things. You stay at home every day, what do you know about being able to accomplish things?" Poplar Fruit didn't know whether to laugh or cry at Fat Dragon's face under the bridge that day. "Sigh, I'm really not lying to you." Fat Dragon smiled. "You've seen his game, and I've played it too. I said it was good just now because I didn't want Tiger Shing to raise the price. In fact, I think this game is quite interesting. Although it hasn't been tested yet, it's definitely a game that will be popular." Poplar Fruit looked at Fat Dragon suspiciously. Fat Dragon advised, "I'm thinking for your own good. At that time, I thought that since you owe me a favor, I might as well sell it for a good price. I just didn't expect Ledong to be so poor. But now's a good opportunity, didn't you see? He's even willing to exchange his shares for it." Fat Dragon's eyes flashed as he laughed. "Ledong isn't worth much now, but once the game is released, it'll definitely be worth a lot of money. If you don't believe me, just take a look." "But why do I feel that it's not reliable?" Poplar Fruit mumbled. "I don't know much about games, and I know even less about mobile games. If I own a mobile game company, wouldn't I be easily cheated? I'm not lying to you." Fat Dragon patted his chest and said, "With my many years of gaming experience, my name Main Tank will definitely be popular in the future. Mobile games are very profitable, and even I want to make a mobile game. Poplar Fruit hesitated and said, "No, I need to think about this." "It's okay, think about it," Fat Dragon said casually. "You're waiting for the right price to sell, so don't be in a hurry. The longer you drag it out, the more shares he might give you." Poplar Fruit rolled his eyes at Fat Dragon and said, "I haven't agreed to sell, don't add fuel to the fire." I know, Fat Dragon said nonchalantly. Fat Dragon went out to call Three Tiger Shing back. Three Tiger Shing raised his phone and said to Poplar Fruit, "Poplar Fruit, I just talked to the other partners in my company, and we're willing to exchange 10% of our shares for it." Poplar Fruit said straightforwardly, "Uncle Hu, this is very important to me, and I need 2 days to think about it." Three Tiger Shing didn't feel disheartened. He felt that as long as Poplar Fruit agreed to think about it, it meant that there was still hope. He could still fight for it. It was impossible for everything in life to be smooth sailing. The road to success was definitely full of difficulties and bumps. The most important thing was whether or not you worked hard to pursue it. If you gave up after encountering a little setback, then you wouldn't even be able to touch the tail of success. This was a principle that he had come to after so many years of struggling in society. It's okay, think about it. It's okay to think about it for a few more days. Three Tiger Shing smiled. "I'll be in Yangcheng for the next few days, so if you have any questions, you can ask me directly." "Oh right." Three Tiger Shing took out a USB from his pocket and handed it to Poplar Fruit. "This is our game, and there's an installation package inside. You can try it out." As he said that, he hesitated for a moment before adding, "That's right, don't spread it. After all, the game hasn't been officially released yet." Regardless of whether he agreed or not, Poplar Fruit admired Three Tiger Shing's positive attitude. He smiled and asked, "Uncle Hu, do you really believe in Fat Dragon's words that much? Just based on his words, you're sure that I have these 2 slots?" "That's not it." Three Tiger Shing scratched his head and said, "Actually, the fact that you're selling games at Blizzard isn't a secret anymore. I have a very good colleague at Jinshan, and he's currently working at Blizzard's headquarters. I've already confirmed it with him. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.